When he heard the Beast Emperor mention defying the heavens and changing the fate of someone, Xianxia thought of the tiny vortex and the little girl within it. Right when he was about to plead for help from the tiny vortex and the little girl, her voice suddenly resounded within his mind. There's no need to beg me, because I'm helpless as well. Her body is completely devoid of vitality, and death energy has appeared within her. So, it's utterly impossible to save her with the ability both the tiny vortex and I possess right now. Didn't Wuxia have no vitality as well? Weren't you still able to defy the heavens and change her fate? Xianxia spoke anxiously in his heart. Her situation was different. She was only on the verge of being devoid of vitality, and there was no death energy within her. So, I only had to go against the laws of this world to rescue her. On the other hand, I would have to go against the supreme laws of the Heaven Tao in order to revive a dead person. Even a Saint Realm expert of this world is incapable of going against the laws of the Heaven Tao. Even the tiny vortex can't accomplish it? Xianxia's voice carried a trace of madness. In his heart, the tiny vortex was all-powerful, so how could it be unable to accomplish it? How could it be beyond its ability? It can't. Or I should say that it can't right now, unless you're able to take full control of it and utilize its ability to reverse yin and yang. However, you're utterly incapable of wielding the tiny vortex now. Xianxia instantly fell weakly to the ground. Even the tiny vortex is unable to save her. Could it be that Mother is really going to die just like that? When he thought up to here, a strand of fierce slaughter sword intent suddenly erupted from within him, and then a blood-red glow slowly seeped out from him. At the same time, Xianxia's eyes started to become crimson red as if he'd become a demon. The red glow seemed to carry a monstrous intent to kill as it swept towards the surroundings. Everywhere it passed, numerous enormous ditches that were over 6 m wide and over 100 m long appeared. However, the red glow didn't disperse into the air, and it raged incessantly through the space in the distance. 8th level slaughter intent. The Beast Emperor's eyelids twitched. He hadn't imagined that Xianxia's slaughter sword intent would actually advance to the 8th level at this moment, because the red glow that was emanated from within Xianxia was a display of slaughter intent that had taken material form. In other words, Xianxia would be able to utilize pure slaughter intent to kill in the future. Of course, most importantly, Xianxia's sword intent could take material form without dispersing into the air from now onward. To put it simply, when Xianxia executed a strand of sword chi enhanced by his sword intent, then the sword intent within that strand of sword chi wouldn't disperse even if his opponent blasted his sword chi into pieces. Of course, the exception to this was when his opponent's strength far surpassed his own. Before the 8th level, all intents could only be utilized to suppress and restrain one's opponents, but once intents attained the 8th level, then their might would undergo a qualitative change. In short, Xianxia could probably even kill some Exalt Realm experts now, because 8th level slaughter sword intent could suppress Exalt Realm experts. Even some 3rd or 4th rank Exalt Realm experts would be extremely afraid of 8th level sword intent, especially slaughter sword intent. Year. Right at this moment, Fengyu grabbed Xianxia's hand and called out to him softly with a voice that carried worry and anxiousness. Even though she didn't know what exactly had happened to Xianxia right now, Xianxia's appearance was truly shocking, because it wasn't just his eyes that were crimson red. Even his hair was covered in a layer of red light, and the savage expression on his face even horrified her. It was like he'd been doused with cold water when he heard Fengyu, and the red glow was instantly retracted into his body like tidewater while the clarity in his eyes returned. Xianxia fell to his knees in front of Fengyu while a sinister and painful expression covered his face, and the tears that rolled down his face again were actually filled with traces of red. The Beast Emperor glanced at them, and then his figure vanished on the spot so that Xianxia and his mother could be alone. Fengyu held Xianxia's hand tightly and said in a gentle voice, "Everyone dies, and I'm really satisfied to have been able to see you before I go. But I'm still quite worried about you and little Yao. Especially you. You've always had an unyielding and impulsive character since a young age, and once you act on impulse, you disregard all consequences. Promise me that you won't avenge me after I go. Take little Yao with you and leave the Southern Territory. and never return again unless you attain the monarch realm. All right? Yang Yi shook his head with an expression of pain. Yet he didn't speak while tears flowed incessantly from his eyes. Do you want me to die with regrets? Feng Yu was slightly angry. She wasn't afraid of death. She was afraid that Yang Yi would do something irrational after she died. Even though Yang Yi had the Beast Emperor's assistance, but the Flower Palace was a sect. If they were willing to pay a certain price, then it wouldn't be impossible for them to kill Yang Yi even if the Beast Emperor were present there. Yang Yi hurriedly said when he saw her get angry, "Don't be angry. I promise, I promise." Feng Yu nodded with satisfaction, and then she pondered deeply for a moment and said, "Year, do you want to know who your father is?" "My father?" Yang Yi shook his head. He was just about to speak when Feng Yu said, "He was a disciple from the branch line within one of the 4 great clans of the Grand Qin Empire, the Yang clan. I know you hate him, but it isn't necessary anymore because he's probably dead." There wasn't even a trace of emotional impact in Yang Ye's heart when he heard these words. Because besides the time when he was a child, he'd never thought about his so-called father again once he understood things. It wasn't just him, even little Yao was the same. Just having their mother was enough for the two of them. Feng Yu didn't intend to speak about the things that happened all those years ago. She gazed towards the distance and remained silent for a moment before she said, "I wasn't always a disciple of the Flower Palace, and I was once the child of a concubine in a hidden clan of the Central Territory. I was framed by a direct line descendant of the clan and forced to leave the Central Territory, so I ended up in the Southern Territory. I never expected that over 20 years would pass after then. A hidden clan? I never expected that mother actually possessed such background." Yang Yi said, "Mother, is there anyone you're concerned about in your clan?" Feng Yu shook her head, glanced at Yang Yi, and then hesitated for a while before she said, "Your grandmother had a wish, and it was that she hoped for her grave to be moved to the clan's ancestral hall and obtain the acknowledgement of the clan. Unfortunately, I'll never be able to help her fulfill that wish of hers. I'll fulfill it on your behalf." Yang Yi lowered his head to prevent Feng Yu from noticing the ferocious expression he had while he spoke in a light voice. At this moment, how could he be unable to discern that his mother was giving him her last words? When he thought up to hear, the profound energy and killing intent within him couldn't help but surge and seemed as if it would surge out from him at any moment. Feng Yu nodded and said, "With your potential, you'll definitely be able to become an expert in the future. At that time, the clan will definitely allow you to acknowledge the ancestors and return to the clan once they find out that you're my son. You can make the decision yourself if that day really comes, and I won't be against it no matter what your decision is." "Which clan did you belong to, mother?" Yang Yi would naturally not choose to join that clan, because just their conversation allowed him to discern had his mother really disliked that so-called clan of hers, and she probably had a huge amount of resentment, no hatred towards that clan. "The Mo clan, I was originally named Mo Shiran, but that was a long time ago. I prefer this name, Feng Yu," said Feng Yu softly. "The Mo clan?" Yang Yi was stunned and said, "The Mo clan that has been enemies with the Shao clan for generations? How did you know?" Feng Yu was astounded. "It really is such a coincidence." Yang Yi shook his head, and then he flipped his palm and summoned Xiao Yushi from within the tiny vortex. The surprise in Feng Yu's eyes grew even denser when she saw Xiao Yushi suddenly appear here. Yang Yi took Xiao Yushi's hand and said, "This is my wife, your daughter-in-law, and she's a member of the Shao clan." Xiao Yushi was slightly bashful when she met Feng Yu, and her face turned red when she heard Yang Yi. She glanced at Yang Yi with embarrassment, and then she walked over to Feng Yu and bowed before she said softly, "Mother!" Even though her voice was extremely soft, it was very clear as well. Feng Yu was stunned, and then she revealed a delighted expression. She took Xiao Yushi's hand and said, "What a beautiful girl. My year is so lucky." Even though she was a member of the Mo clan, she'd never taken herself to be one. So, she didn't feel any aversion or displeasure towards the fact that Xiao Yushi was from the Shao clan. All he knew was that this was her son's wife. As if she'd thought of something, Feng Yu gazed at Yang Yi and said, "I take back what I said. You don't have to join the Mo clan, and don't get mixed into the matters between the Mo clan and the Xiao clan. Just take good care of little Yao, start a family, and live well. Never allow yourself to be swept into any conflicts. Understand? She didn't want her son to become a tool of slaughter for the Mo clan in the future. I understand. Yang Yi nodded. Feng Yu hadn't noticed that Yang Yi had clenched his fists so tightly that his nails had sunk deep into his palm. Xiao Yushi glanced at Yang Yi while a wisp of pain flashed through her eyes, because her palm had Yang Yi's blood all over it. And she knew that Yang Yi was definitely in extreme pain right now and was just forcefully restraining himself. Xiao Yushi turned to glance at Feng Yu, and then shock immediately filled her heart. At this moment, Feng Yu's countenance was extraordinarily ghastly pale and without the slightest trace of blood. Moreover, there was a strand of seemingly material black energy at the center of her brows while her gaze was gradually going blank. Feng Yu nodded with satisfaction, and then she glanced at Xiao Yushi before she glanced at Yang Yi. There were numerous emotions in her eyes like reluctance, regret, and uneasiness. She gradually stretched out her hand towards Yang Yi's face as she cried out lightly, "Year, little Yao." However, her hand stopped right when it was about to touch Yang Yi's face, and then it instantly fell towards the ground. Yang Yi hurriedly grabbed his mother's hand and placed it on his teary face. Xiao Yushi was just about to speak, yet her pupils suddenly constricted, and then her saber dropped to the ground with a clang. Because there was no more color in Feng Yu's eyes anymore, and she'd stopped breathing, Yang Yi didn't go berserk, and he just knelt there before Feng Yu. Since he stepped foot into the sword sect until now, all the effort he'd exerted were for the sake of allowing his family to live a happier and better life. However, his mother had died, and she died because of a rule that the palace master of the Flower Palace had set over 10,000 years ago. Ha! How fucking laughable! A rule that a person who died 10,000 years ago set caused my mother to lose her life. How truly laughable! Hatred, boundless hatred welled up within him. He hated everyone in the Flower Palace, and he hated himself even more for being incapable. Regret. He regretted not rushing back home earlier before his mother exposed her identity that day. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. Xiao Yushi accompanied Yang Yi and knelt there in front of Feng Yu as well. She didn't say anything because it was useless no matter what she said now. All she could do was accompany Yang Yi and share his pain. After a long time passed, Yang Yi helped Xiao Yushi up, and then he placed Feng Yu's corpse into the tiny vortex. After that, he said, "Yushi, help me take care of my younger sister, little Yao, who's at the Talisman Masters Association in the Imperial Capital, all right? I can only truly be at ease when she's with you." Xiao Yushi fell silent for a moment before he said, "Be careful." She knew Yang Yi was sending her away, and she knew what he intended to do. However, she didn't dissuade him because Yang Yi's gaze told her that no one could change his decision. So, the only thing she could do was support him. A wisp of a cold smile arose on the corners of Yang Yi's mouth as he said, "Don't worry. I'll stay alive and well. At the very least, I'll be alive and well until the Flower Palace is completely annihilated." Xiao Yushi walked over to Yang Yi and gave him a light peck on his lips before she said softly, "Be careful. If you die, then I definitely won't continue living by myself. So, just take it as you can't die for my sake. Understand?" As soon as she finished speaking, Xiao Yushi's figure flashed towards the imperial capital. After she left, the Beast Emperor appeared in front of Yang Yi. "You intend to attack the Flower Palace?" asked the Beast Emperor in a low voice. "How can I not avenge the death of my mother?" Yang Yi slowly closed his eyes tightly, while his slaughter intent couldn't help but seep out from him and cause the ground around him to crack. The Beast Emperor remained silent for a moment before he said, "With the natural talent and potential you possess, you'll be able to annihilate the Flower Palace with a flick of your finger in less than 100 years. But now, they can annihilate you with a flick of their finger. I can help you stop one monarch realm expert at most, so how will you deal with the other two? Moreover, I sensed an extremely obscure aura in the Flower Palace just now. My guess is that the Flower Palace is probably up to something, so it's truly not advisable to fight them to the death right now. Senior, you just have to stop a single monarch realm expert. Leave the rest to me, said Xianxia. You have the support of other experts? The Beast Emperor glanced at Xianxia with a curious gaze. Xianxia didn't answer the Beast Emperor's question and said, the Flower Palace has a formidable enemy right now, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I think that the Grand Qin Empire would be very willing to join forces with us. The Beast Emperor sighed and said, in this way, my Dark Beast Empire will really be tied to you. Kid, I know you're a loyal person, and I know that you'll definitely remember my Dark Beast Empire's help today and won't betray my Dark Beast Empire. However, the most inconstant thing in the world just happens to be the hearts of men. Kid, can I trust you? Senior, haven't you already trusted me? Said Xianxia. The Beast Emperor chuckled and said, all right, kid. I'll go crazy with you this time. After he obtained the Beast Emperor's answer, Xianxia didn't stay here any longer, and he utilized the 9th Hell Sword Wings to transform into a shadow that vanished in the horizon. A noble man gets his revenge, even if it takes 10 years. He, Xianxia, was no noble man, and he strived to take revenge on the very same day that enmity was formed. Tiger Cloud City. Tiger Cloud City was the city closest to the Flower Palace, and it was also the city which the vassals of the Flower Palace had the weakest amount of influence in. Li Si and Bai Qi had brought 300,000 troops with them. 200,000 were at the First Heaven Realm, almost 90,000 were at the King Realm, and the last 10,000 were Spirit Realm experts. Moreover, there were over 30 Exalt Realm experts amongst their forces as well. It could be said that the military strength that the Grand Qin Empire had dispatched to the Flower Palace was only inferior to the Origin School. What's the current status of the Flower Palace? Li Si asked an Exalt Realm officer who stood in front of him within Tiger Cloud City. Bai Qi was by Li Si's side, and there were over 20 Exalt Realm experts standing further away. Prime Minister, the Flower Palace hasn't taken any unusual action. The Origin School, Ghost Sect, Snow Palace, and Bright Moon Sect have been surrounded by our forces, so they're utterly unable to dispatch forces to assist the Flower Palace. I think that we can attack, said the officer in a serious tone. Li Si shook his head and said, the more it's like that, the more uneasy I feel. Chen Huagu isn't an idiot. Since she dared to bait our Grand Qin Empire to attack, then they're probably scheming against our empire. Moreover, they seem extremely steady like a rock even when the army of my empire has pressed down onto their borders, and the entire Flower Palace doesn't show a single trace of disorder. I presume that they wish for nothing more than to see us attack them. Prime Minister, we can't just stay here idly as well, said another one of the officers. Indeed, Bai Qi spoke in agreement. Li Si shook his head and said, of course we won't. If I'm not wrong, then Wang Jian, who's besieging the Bright Moon Sect, should be on the verge of capturing it, right? Right at this moment, a wave of spatial fluctuation arose here, and then a voice arose from there. Prime Minister, there's a change in the situation. Marquis Wang Jian and all the forces he led to the Bright Moon Sect were annihilated, and the cause of their death is unknown. I've sent scouts, but none have returned. The expressions of everyone within the hall changed upon hearing this. After all, Wang Jian was a first-rank Monarch Realm expert, and he'd even taken over 20 Exalt Realm experts and 20,000-plus troops with him. So, how could the Bright Moon Sect possibly annihilate them? Moreover, not a single one of them had been able to escape. After all, the Bright Moon Sect only possessed a single Monarch Realm expert and over 10 Exalt Realm experts. Bang! Right at this moment, an enormous bang suddenly resounded from the outside. At practically the exact same instant that the explosion resounded, both Li Si and Bai Qi vanished on the spot and appeared in the sky above Tiger Cloud City. In their fields of vision, an area of a few hundred kilometers had been transformed into ruins. It's a Monarch Realm expert. Both of them exchanged glances, and there was a solemn gaze in both their eyes, because this expert had actually been able to avoid their divine sense and arrive at Tiger Cloud City without making a single sound. In other words, that person's strength was definitely above their own. Bang! Suddenly, their pupils constricted, and then their figures flickered and instantly vanished on the spot. Right after the two of them vanished, An enormous palm that was over 1 kilometer wide had appeared out of thin air and slapped down onto that expanse of space which they resided at just now. That expanse of space rumbled and exploded into pieces to reveal a pitch-black and enormous hole, and it was only repaired by the energy of the laws after a few breaths of time passed. The two of you were actually able to avoid my attack? I never expected that such monarch realm experts existed in the Southern Territory. Along with this voice, an old man who wore an embroidered robe had appeared in midair and met the gazes of Li Si and Bai Qi. He's at least at the 3rd rank of the monarch realm. Li Si and Bai Qi's hearts shook while their expressions turned solemn. You're not a profounder from the Southern Territory. Li Si spoke with a heavy voice while a white ruler appeared in his hand. How discerning of you! The old man laughed coldly and said, I'm an honorary elder of the exalted Han Empire in the Central Territory, and my name is Situ Hai, the exalted Han Empire. Li Si and Bai Qi's expressions changed, and then Li Si said in a heavy voice, There doesn't seem to be any conflict or enmity between my Grand Qin Empire and the exalted Han Empire, right? So why have you come to the Southern Territory, and why do you assist the Flower Palace? At this moment, both of them understood where the Flower Sect and the other sects got their confidence from. It turned out that it was from this extraordinary overlord of the Central Territory. However, Li Si and Bai Qi couldn't figure out why the exalted Han Empire would come over and assist the sects of the Southern Territory. After all, a huge price had to be paid in order to allow these monarch realm experts to pass through the barrier between territories. There was no conflict in the past, but there is now. Situ Hai chuckled and said, I presume you're still not aware of it. Besides the Sword Sect, all the other 5 of the 6 great powers in the Southern Territory have sided with my exalted Han Empire and have become vassals of my exalted Han Empire. So, your Grand Qin Empire's actions of attacking them is equivalent to attacking my exalted Han Empire. Understand? How could that be possible? Tempestuous waves surged through Li Si's heart. How could the Origin School and the other sects choose to become vassals of the exalted Han Empire? All of them, and even my Grand Qin Empire, are nothing in the Central Territory, but everyone is used to being superior in the Southern Territory. So, how could they have chosen to become the servants of others? Moreover, how exactly did this expert of the exalted Han Empire come to the Southern Territory? Why was he not affected by the barrier between territories at all? Why can't it be possible? Situ Hai laughed coldly and said, All right, let's get to the point. I merely came here to tell you that my exalted Han Empire's experts and the Soul Eater Corps will arrive at the Southern Territory soon. If you Grand Qin Empire wants to life and maintain its throne, then surrender. Otherwise, hee. How exactly did all of you come to the Southern Territory? Li Si asked in a low voice. Even a 7th-rank monarch realm expert can't traverse the barrier between territories and remain unaffected. You're at the 4th rank of the monarch realm at most, yet not only have you been able to pass through the barrier, you're completely unaffected by it. Could it be that the barrier has become useless and the continent is about to join into one? Have you heard of the Mortal Emperor Sword? Said Situ Hai. Li Si's pupils constricted, and he cried out involuntarily. The Mortal Emperor Sword has acknowledged an owner? How could that be possible? How can a true mortal emperor still appear in the continent? How could this be possible? The Mortal Emperor Sword had many uses, and one of it was the ability to disregard all barriers and seals on Profounder Continent. Because the Mortal Emperor Sword was a natural Dao artifact that had been born along with this world. Dao artifacts were divided into natural and artificial Dao artifacts. The dark treasures in both Li Si and Bai Qi's possessions were Dao artifacts, but they were artificial Dao artifacts. On the other hand, the Mortal Emperor Sword was a natural Dao artifact, and it was one that had been born along with this world. Li Si was extraordinarily shocked. Compared to the Mortal Emperor Sword, he felt even greater shock from the appearance of the Mortal Emperor. The Mortal Emperor had only appeared once during the prehistoric age a few tens of thousands of years ago, and only a total of 3 had appeared in the world. What was the Mortal Emperor? According to legend, the Mortal Emperor was the messenger of the world and managed the world on behalf of the heavens and the earth. This legend was based on facts because every single mortal emperor had united the entire continent. All territories would submit once the mortal emperor sword appears. The appearance of the mortal emperor represented that the continent was about to be united, because the seals and barriers throughout the various territories would cease to exist before the mortal emperor's sword. Simply speaking, from that moment onward, all the residents of the various territories could travel freely between each other, and they wouldn't be restricted by the barriers between territories. Now you know why the Origin School and those other sects have sided with my exalted Han Empire, right? Situ Hai said coldly. The mortal emperor is aware that your Grand Qin Empire would definitely not submit that easily, so he ordered us to give your empire a small lesson. Both of you seem to possess pretty good strengths, are skilled at leading troops, and capable at managing an empire. If the two of you are willing to submit to the mortal emperor, then not only can you avoid death, the mortal emperor will even put both of you in important positions. What a joke! Bai Qi laughed coldly while he pointed his saber at Situ Hai and said, "You want us to surrender and betray our emperor? How truly laughable! Allow me, Bai Qi, to experience exactly how formidable the monarch realm experts of the Central Territory are." He swung his saber as soon as he finished speaking, and then a blood-red glow that was over 100 m wide and 300 m long tore through space as it slashed down towards Situ Hai. "You're courting death." Situ Hai waved his palm, causing an enormous to flash into appearance and instantly slapped apart that blood-red glow from Bai Qi. Right at this moment, an enormous milky white glow flashed from the tip of the ruler of righteousness in Li Si's hand, and it instantly arrived before Situ Hai. The latter's expression changed slightly. He swiftly stomped space with his right leg, causing it to instantly rumble and shatter into pieces while his figure immediately vanished from amidst the shattered-apart rift in space. "You're truly courting death. All of you'll definitely perish once the mortal emperor leads the army into the southern territory." Situ Hai's voice resounded from afar. Bai Qi and Li Si's expressions were extremely solemn as they watched Situ Hai leave. Our Grand Qin Empire is truly in danger if the exalted Han Empire has joined in. Right at this moment, the space in front of them was suddenly torn apart, and then a middle-aged man who wore a robe embroidered with dragons had suddenly walked out from within the rift. It was exactly the founding emperor. When they saw the founding emperor, Bai Qi and Li Si finally understood why Situ Hai had fled just now. "Emperor!" Bai Qi and Li Si bowed. The founding emperor waved his hand and said, "Unfortunately, I was a step too late. Otherwise, I'd have definitely killed that fellow." As soon as he finished speaking, the founding emperor pondered deeply before he continued. "Withdraw the entire army to Olympia City that's behind the Great Wall and use Olympia City as an outpost. After that, assume the coiling dragon formation and stand on the defensive there." Bai Qi bowed to the founding emperor before he turned around and left to prepare. Li Si pondered deeply for a moment and said, "What about the people in the cities outside the Great Wall? Abandon them." The founding emperor spoke decisively. "My empire doesn't possess sufficient military strength, so it's utterly unable to take care of all the cities. So long as Olympia City isn't lost, then the army of that so-called mortal emperor would be unable to enter the core of my empire and cause lethal harm to my empire. As for the cities outside the Great Wall..." The founding emperor pondered deeply for a moment before he said, "Issue the order for all profounders to retreat from these cities to Olympia City." "What about the commoners? Their fate is up to the heavens." Li Si sighed lightly in his heart but didn't speak another word, because even more residents of the Grand Qin Empire would perish if they didn't act in this way. In next to no time, all the troops of the empire had retreated to Olympia City, and they'd gone from an offensive position to a defensive one. At the same time, Yang Yi had arrived at the foot of Peony Peak in the Flower Palace. Feng Yu had told him not to take revenge before she died. But how could he not avenge his mother? Yang Yi knew that his actions were very impulsive and insensible, and he was really courting death by coming to the Flower Palace. However, he'd still done so. Feng Yu's death had caused the killing intent in Yang Ye's heart to rise to an extreme, and he would go mad if he didn't kill. One had to pass through the 12 peaks of the Flower Palace in order to arrive at Flower Hall, And these 12 peaks were a barrier that stood before the Flower Palace and was managed by 12 Exalt Realm experts of the Flower Palace. Only by passing through these 12 peaks could one arrive at the main hall of the Flower Palace, Flower Hall. At the foot of Peony Peak, Xianxia held the ancient sheath in his left hand, while Void Flash laid in his right palm, and the 9th Hell Sword Wings resided on his back. Mother, watch me from the heavens and see how I avenge you. Xianxia took a deep breath before he stepped onto the steps on the mountain, and he'd just done so when 2 Spirit Realm experts of the Flower Palace flashed down from Peony Peak. Who are you? This is the Flower Palace. Unrelated people. Xianxia swung Void Flash, and then the voice of that female disciple had stopped abruptly, because the blade of a sword had suddenly swept through her neck, and then her head flew into the air. Who are you? The other disciple was astounded. However, another ray of light flashed, and then her head flew into the air as well. After he instantly annihilated these Spirit Realm experts of the Flower Palace, the killing intent Xianxia emanated grew even denser. Right at this moment, the pearl of baleful blood flew out from within him, and it revolved as the blood and resentment of those 2 women were instantly absorbed by it. Xianxia glanced indifferently at the pearl of baleful blood, and then he paid no further attention to it. Since he had the tiny vortex, sword spirit, and white dragon with him, it didn't make a difference no matter how strong the pearl of baleful blood became, as it would only benefit him in the end. Xianxia's figure flashed towards the top of Peony Peak. Yet he'd just flown 300 m up when over 100 disciples of the Flower Palace swarmed down from the top of the mountain. There were over 10 Spirit Realm experts amongst them, but most were Peak King Realm experts. Who are you? How dare you cause trouble at my Flower Palace? The woman in the lead pointed a finger at Xianxia as she shouted furiously. The answer she received was a ray of light from a sword, and it flashed by before the woman in the lead was instantly annihilated. The others by her side were astounded, and they were just about to attack when an extremely bloody and terrifying strand of slaughter sword intent suddenly crashed down upon them like a mountain. The circulation of profound energy within their body stopped for a moment while their bodies almost fell weakly to the ground. Xianxia swung Void Flash again, and then a ray of light flashed before dozens of disciples before him were instantly annihilated. With another swing of his sword, the remaining disciples didn't even have the chance to resist before they were chopped apart at the waist. He'd killed over 10 Spirit Realm experts and around 100 King Realm profounders with a swing of his sword. Besides few people, no one else beneath the Exalt Realm throughout Profounder Continent could resist the combination of his 8th level Slaughter Sword intent and Void Flash. Xianxia withdrew an extreme-grade energy stone and placed it in his pocket to absorb the energy within it. And then he flapped the 9th Hell Sword Wings and transformed into a ray of light that flashed into the sky. Right when he was about to step foot onto the peak of the mountain, a strand of sword chi had slashed over horizontally. It was an Exalt Realm expert. Xianxia laughed coldly, as the ancient sheath shook lightly, and then the strand of sword chi was instantly absorbed by the ancient sheath. At the same time, Xianxia stepped foot onto the peak of the mountain. A middle-aged woman was looking coldly at him from over 30 m away, and she had a sword in her hand. There were a few dozen Spirit Realm experts, a few hundred King Realm and First Heaven Realm profounders around her. The middle-aged woman's name was Feng Ru, and she was the Peak Master of Peony Peak. Moreover, she was a 3rd-rank Exalt Realm expert. Feng Ru glanced at the ancient sheath in Xianxia's hand, and then her eyelids twitched while her expression turned solemn. She said, "The Sword Emperor's ancient sheath. You're Xianxia. You?" As she spoke, her expression changed slightly because she sensed a strand of sword intent pressed down upon her, and the others like an enormous mountain. Some of the First Heaven Realm profounders at the side were directly smashed to the ground by the pressure from this sword intent, while some King Realm profounders lost all intent to fight and only had terror within them. Moreover, the brows of some of the Spirit Realm experts had knit together tightly. Their countenances had turned ghastly pale, and their breathing was rapid. When the pressure of this sword intent pressed down upon her, even Feng Ru's profound energy showed signs of slowing down, while a feeling that he was impossible to resist had arisen within her mind. It's at least 8th level sword intent. All of them were astounded. Yang Yi issued a command in his heart before 200 swords shot into the sky from within the tiny vortex. These 200 swords were instantly enhanced by his slaughter sword intent before transforming into 200 rays of blood-red light that shot violently towards the disciples of the Flower Palace. How terrifying was this sword formation while being enhanced by 8th level slaughter sword intent. In just an instant, Feng Ru knew that it was absolutely impossible for these disciples by her side to resist this sword formation. Right when she intended to lend them a hand, Yang Yi had arrived in front of her, and then his sword slashed forward as swiftly as a bolt of lightning. Feng Ru's expression changed slightly when she noticed this, and then she suddenly shouted, "Spatial cage!" As soon as she spoke, Yang Ye's sword had suddenly stopped and was frozen in midair. A wisp of joy arose in her heart upon witnessing this. However, that sword which should have been frozen in midair had suddenly stabbed towards her neck like a venomous snake. Feng Ru was astounded by this development. His sword can actually struggle free of my spatial cage. This wasn't the time to be shocked. Feng Ru didn't dare go head-on against Yang Ye's sword that was enhanced by 8th level slaughter sword intent, and she was just about to dodge when she heard Yang Yi shout lightly, "Sword domain!" As soon as he spoke, the sword domain instantly enveloped Feng Ru, and then her figure that was just about to flash away had slowed down. On the other hand, the sword in Yang Ye's hand instantly sped up by at least 10 times, and then a ray of light flashed before Feng Ru's eyes opened wide. Sword domain. Feng Ru gazed at him with disbelief, and she just finished speaking these 2 words when blood started flowing slowly from her neck. A gust of wind blew over, and it instantly pushed her head off her neck, causing fresh blood to spray like a fountain. After he finished Feng Ru with a single swung to the neck, Yang Yi took out another extreme-grade energy stone and started absorbing the energy within it, before he gazed at the disciples of the Flower Palace who were resisting his sword formation. He stomped the ground lightly with his right foot, and then he directly vanished on the spot while relying on the propulsion of the 9th Hell Sword Wings and arrived amidst those disciples. Rays of light flashed as countless shrill cries resounded incessantly, and all the disciples of the Flower Palace here had been annihilated in less than 3 breaths of time. The pearl of baleful blood seemed as if it had obtained a priceless treasure, and it revolved swiftly before Yang Yi while the blood and resentment of those disciples of the Flower Palace were instantly absorbed by it. Yang Yi, how audacious of you! How dare you attack my Flower Palace? A furious roar rumbled like a thunderclap in the sky above Yang Yi, and then a gorgeous flower petal tore through space and swept towards Yang Yi. It was a monarch realm expert. That petal was caught between 2 fingers, and they didn't belong to Yang Yi but the Beast Emperor. As he gazed at the petal in his hand, the Beast Emperor exerted a little strength, and it instantly transformed into a pile of powder. A monarch realm expert of the Flower Palace actually attacked a spirit realm profounder? Isn't that a little too embarrassing? The Beast Emperor spoke indifferently as he gazed towards a spot in space. A wave of fluctuation arose in space, and then Chen Hui, Chen Nianxi, and Chen Huagu appeared here on the top of Peony Peak. Beast Emperor, do you really intend to become enemies with my Flower Palace for his sake? Chen Huagu spoke in a low voice. The Beast Emperor chuckled lightly and said, "I'm sorry. I'm just acting according to my deal with him." Chen Huagu's face fell while Chen Hui laughed coldly and said, "Beast Emperor, even your Dark Beast Empire will be in danger soon. Yet you still have the time to stand up for others? How laughable. Moreover, do you really think you can protect him today?" The Beast Emperor was extremely formidable, but no matter how formidable he was, could he go against all 3 of them? What if you count us in? Right at this moment, the founding emperor, Li Si, and Bai Qi suddenly appeared here. The expressions on the faces of Chen Huagu and the others turned gloomy upon seeing the founding emperor's group. Obviously, they hadn't expected that the founding emperor of Grand Qin Emperor would actually lend Yang Yi a hand. Yang Yi wasn't surprised by their arrival at all because it was exactly Yang Yi who'd asked the founding emperor to come here. The Grand Qin Empire was facing enemies on all fronts right now, and it was even facing a formidable enemy, Exalted Han Empire. So, when Yang Yi had mentioned allowing the Grand Qin Empire and the Dark Beast Empire to form an alliance, the founding emperor had practically not hesitated to agree. In the founding emperor's opinion, this wasn't the time to pay any attention to whether his allies were of the same race as him and if they had other malicious intentions. Because everything would be meaningless if the Grand Qin Empire were gone. Haha! I never expected that the founding emperor of the Grand Qin Empire would actually form an alliance with the Dark Beast Empire's Beast Emperor. Qian Huagu spoke with a gloomy expression. However, do the two of you think just the two of you would be able to destroy my flower palace? Brother Situ, will you still not show yourself? As soon as she finished speaking, Situ Hai had appeared here as well. Along with the arrival of Situ Hai, the number of Monarch Realm experts on both sides had become equal. Qian Huagu's eyes narrowed slightly. Even though their numbers were equal, she knew that her side was weaker. Because both the founding emperor and beast emperor were peak 5th rank Monarch Realm experts, whereas only she was at the 5th rank of the Monarch Realm, whereas Situ Hai and her two junior sisters were merely at the 4th rank and 3rd rank of the Monarch Realm. If only Yu Linglong wasn't injured by the Sword Sect's founding ancestor. Otherwise. Qian Huagu shook her head slowly. But the Origin School, Ghost Sect, Snow Palace, and Bright Moon Sect should have received my transmission talisman, so why haven't they dispatched any experts? Are you waiting for the experts from the Origin School and the others? Meanwhile, the founding emperor suddenly said, If you are, then I advise you to stop, because the Beast Emperor and I have dispatched experts to obstruct them. If they dare to assist your flower palace, then the experts of my Grand Qin Empire and the Dark Beast Empire will slaughter their sects. So, they won't come to your rescue. When he spoke up to hear, the founding ancestor suddenly looked at Situ Hai and said, As for the mortal emperor of your exalted Han Empire, I presume he's definitely unable to bring his army to the southern territory right now. Even though I don't know the reason behind it, he should be unable to come right now, right? Situ Hai's heart shook because he knew the founding emperor was right. The mortal emperor was really unable to come to the southern territory for now. Because along with the appearance of the mortal emperor, contention and conflict for power had arisen within the exalted Han Empire. The mortal emperor was dealing with the internal conflict within the exalted Han Empire right now and solidifying his position and authority. The reason the mortal emperor had dispatched him and the others to the southern territory was merely because the mortal emperor was worried the Grand Qin Empire would unite the southern territory. After all, it would make it much more difficult for him to subdue the southern territory then. However, the mortal emperor will come in the end, Situ Hai said coldly. At that time, I hope you'll be able to be as calm and indifferent as you are right now. The founding emperor laughed with disdain and said, Even if he's the mortal emperor and ruler of all who'd acknowledged by this world. But so what? What does my Grand Qin Empire have to fear? Let's not waste our breaths. Since your exalted Han Empire intends to interfere in the matters of the southern territory, then we'll just fight it out. The victor will naturally be decided in the future. Situ Hai grunted coldly, and then he fell silent. The founding emperor glanced at Yang Yi and said, How many you're able to kill today will depend entirely on your own ability. No experts above the Exalt Realm will be able to act against you. However, you have to deal with the Exalt Realm experts by yourself. Because while we are stopping them, they're stopping us as well. So, your fate depends entirely on your own strength. Understood. Yang Yi nodded, and then he paid no further attention to Qian Huagu and the others. His figure flashed down the mountain. Qian Huagu and the others didn't stop him, nor were they capable of stopping him. Because the founding emperor and the others had locked onto them. So the slightest unusual movement they made would bring down a volley of attacks against them. I think that all of us have no need to fight. Meanwhile, the Beast Emperor suddenly said, With the strengths we possess, it would at least take 10 days to 15 days of battle to decide on a victor, and it would take a few months to decide life and death. However, it's very obvious that both our sides have no intention to fight to the death. Since it's like that, then fighting amongst ourselves is completely meaningless. Beast Emperor, are you that confident in Yang Yi? Are you so sure that he'll be able to go against the countless experts of my flower palace with a strength at the spirit realm? Qian Huagu spoke coldly. Let's wait and see. The Beast Emperor smiled and said, We'll withdraw immediately if he dies, and all of you will stay put peacefully while he's alive, alright? I agree, Situhai said. I don't believe that kid will be able to go against the entire flower palace with a cultivation at the spirit realm. Qian Huagu fell silent for a short while before she agreed to the Beast Emperor's suggestion in the end. After all, she had no other choice because her refusal would lead to a battle between them, and a battle between them was utterly meaningless. However, there was slight uneasiness in her heart as she wondered why the founding emperor and Beast Emperor would be so confident in Yang Yi. After all, even though Monarch Realm experts wouldn't be interfering in the battle, the Flower Palace still possessed numerous Exalt Realm experts, and there were a few 9th rank Exalt Realm experts as well. It was already very heaven-defying for Yang Yi to be capable of surmounting a realm of cultivation and annihilating a 3rd rank Exalt Realm expert. But could he go so far as to kill a 9th rank Exalt Realm expert? The answer was that it was impossible. Even the founding ancestor of the Sword Sect wasn't that monstrous during his time. So, Yang Yi would definitely die. The second peak was Bamboo Peak, and the Peak Master, Feng Min, was already prepared for battle when he arrived at its peak. However, Feng Min was all alone because profounders below the Exalt Realm were of no threat to Yang Yi. As for Exalt Realm experts, the Flower Palace did possess many Exalt Realm experts, but was as necessary to order numerous Exalt Realm experts to jointly attack in order to kill a Spirit Realm profounder? The Flower Palace was a large sect, so it couldn't afford to lose face like that, especially when so many powers of the Southern Territory would be watching. Feng Min was a profounder at the 4th rank of the Exalt Realm, and her strength was comparatively lower amongst the 12 Peak Masters. However, the Flower Palace felt that she was sufficient to kill Yang Yi. Did they need to utilize a profounder at the 5th rank of the Exalt Realm or above in order to kill a 2nd rank Spirit Realm profounder? It was entirely unnecessary in the Flower Palace's opinion, and they felt that they were already thinking very highly of Yang Yi by dispatching a 4th rank Exalt Realm profounder. Feng Min didn't underestimate Yang Yi. Even if this sword cultivator who possessed the enlightened sword heart and 8th level slaughter sword intent was merely at the spirit realm, she didn't dare underestimate him. Especially the slaughter sword intent Yang Yi possessed, because even she was extremely fearful of it. If Yang Yi was at the Exalt realm, then she wouldn't be confident in her ability at all. No, it would even be to the extent that she wouldn't even have the courage to face him. However, Yang Yi was merely at the spirit realm. The gap in their cultivations caused her to be confident in her ability to kill him. Feng Min didn't waste her breath at all, and she grasped her hand in Yang Ye's direction as she shouted, "Spatial cage." She hadn't wasted her breath because it was completely meaningless, and she utilized her full strength as soon as she attacked. The space Yang Yi resided in froze. But in the next moment, a strand of red light suddenly surged from within him, and a light bang resounded as Feng Min's spatial cage was destroyed by Yang Ye's 8th level slaughter sword intent. Feng Min's eyelids twitched when she witnessed this scene while shock arose in her heart. Even though she knew Yang Ye's strength wasn't bad, she hadn't imagined that he would actually be able to destroy her spatial cage with such ease. Yang Ye's strength had surpassed her expectations. The wings on Yang Ye's back flapped swiftly, and then he suddenly vanished on the spot. He instantly arrived before Feng Min, and then a ray of light flashed as Void Flash swept towards her throat. Feng Min's figure flashed, vanished on the spot, and appeared behind Yang Yi. Yang Yi wasn't surprised by this at all, and Void Flash didn't slow down at all as it continued to sweep forward. However, the only difference was that Void Flash's blade had pierced into space, while Feng Min was horrified, because she'd just appeared behind Yang Yi and hadn't even had the chance to attack when the tip of a sword had shockingly appeared before her neck, and the cold glow that suffused it caused her hairs to instantly stand on end. She was just about to evade, yet a strand of invisible energy suddenly appeared around her, and it caused the space in her surroundings to freeze momentarily. Just this instant of delay allowed that sword to sweep through her neck. It's the energy of domain. It's the sword domain. The expressions of Chen Huagu and the others changed when they witnessed this scene. In the past, there had been rumors that Yang Yi possessed the sword domain, but they didn't believe it. After all, Yang Yi was so young, so how could he possibly possess it? Yet now they had no choice but to believe it. Qian Huagu and the others had extremely unsightly expressions because Yang Yi was a sword cultivator who possessed the sword domain and 8th level slaughter sword intent. Most importantly, he was only around the age of 20. If he's allowed to grow, then he'll definitely become another expert on par with the sword sect's founding ancestor. Most importantly, such a monstrous genius was a mortal enemy of the Flower Palace. Regret. Qian Huagu was truly filled with regret. If I hadn't punished Feng Yu at that time and accepted her back into the sect, then it would be equivalent to the Flower Palace possessing an extraordinary genius. Even though the rules of the sect disallowed it, she believed that the founding ancestor would definitely support her decision if she were still alive. After all, such a peerless genius was worthy of making the Flower Palace make an exception for him. Unfortunately, not only had it not obtained such a peerless genius, the Flower Palace had made him into a peerless enemy in the future. Sentencing Feng Yu to death was truly a wrong decision. At this moment, it wasn't just Qian Huagu who thought in this way. Even Qian Nianxi and Qian Hui had similar thoughts in their hearts. At this moment, Situhai had a solemn expression on his face. Even if he's only at the spirit realm right now, but once a sword emperor who has comprehended sword domain matures, he would definitely become a peerless existence. This Flower Palace is truly idiotic. They actually completely offended such a genius and became mortal enemies with him. Once they fail to destroy him and allow him to mature, then wouldn't he be able to annihilate the Flower Palace in an instant? Situhai glanced at Qian Huagu and the others while he shook his head and said to himself, "They really are a bunch of pig-headed idiots." On the other hand, the founding emperor and beast emperor seemed to be taking pleasure in the Flower Palace's misfortune. They offended such a peerless genius yet are unable to kill him. This flower place is bound to suffer a tragedy. Actually, there's no need to wait for the future because they're suffering a tragedy right now. After he killed Feng Min, Yang Yi withdrew another extreme-grade energy stone and placed it in his pocket. Void Flash truly exhausted a huge amount of profound energy, and even with the profound energy he possessed, he could only utilize its ability to pierce through space 3 times. If he didn't possess these extreme-grade energy stones and profound energy reserves that far exceeded profounders at the same level of cultivation, he wouldn't dare utilize Void Flash at all. He'd only dared to utilize Void Flash and the 9th Hell Swordwing so fearlessly because he possessed enough extreme-grade energy stones to provide an unending supply of profound energy to him. It was also the reason he could display strength that exceeded his ordinary ability. The current strength he revealed was something that had been boosted by the power of wealth. After the Pearl of Baleful Blood absorbed Feng Min's blood, Yang Yi walked towards Bamboo Hall that was situated on Bamboo Peak, because he sensed that numerous disciples of the Flower Palace were within it. The enmity between him and the Flower Palace was irreconcilable, and no one or thing could change that. Since it was irreconcilable, then he intended to kill them all, especially at this moment. After all, such an opportunity was difficult to come by. Yang Yi suddenly stopped moving when he arrived at the entrance to Bamboo Hall because a wave of fluctuation had appeared in the space over 30 m in front of him. After that, a middle-aged woman appeared there. The middle-aged woman held a sword in her hand while a strand of fierce sword intent swept out incessantly from within her, and the space in its path crackled as her sword intent tore it apart. 7th level sword intent. Yang Ye's expression grew slightly solemn because this Exalt Realm expert before him was actually a sword cultivator. Moreover, she was a sword cultivator who had comprehended sword intent. How surprising! It's the sword fairy Feng Jian. Li Si frowned slightly in midair while Bai Qi's brows had knit together a little as well, because the sword fairy was an existence of the same generation as them. Even though she was only a 5th-rank Exalt Realm profounder right now, her reputation all those years ago was like the scorching sun in the midday sky, and it even surpassed their reputations. However, for some unknown reason, she'd suddenly vanished from the Southern Territory, and this lasted for over 10 years of time, and her cultivation had been constantly stuck at the 5th rank of the Exalt Realm once she showed herself again. Li Si and Bai Qi hadn't expected that the Flower Palace would actually dispatch her. Yang Ye's in danger this time. Feng Jian glanced indifferently at Yang Yi. Her eyes were calm and composed, and only the sword in her hand was howling lightly. Both of them exchanged glances. In the next moment, the ninth hell sword wings on Yang Ye's back flapped, and then a gust of violent winds arose as Yang Yi vanished on the spot. Clang! The clear and melodious sound of metal colliding resounded, and then Yang Yi returned to where he stood earlier while Feng Jian was standing on the spot. However, the sword in her hand had split into two halves. Yang Ye's expression became serious. Even though her sword had been broken, he was in a disadvantaged position during that collision, because she'd resisted the suppression from his sword intent and had still been able to push him back. Even though his slaughter sword intent was a level higher than her sword intent, his cultivation was far inferior to hers. The gap between their cultivations became obvious once more. Feng Jian suddenly said, "Your senior sister Feng Yu's son?" Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't attack and was just about to speak, but he suddenly shook his head and laughed with self-ridicule. It's meaningless no matter what her relationship with Mother is because Mother is already dead. I'm very sorry about your mother. I owe her my life, yet I'm unable to repay her anymore, said Feng Jian in a low voice. You still can. Move aside and allow me to slaughter all those disciples in there, and you can consider yourself to have repaid your debt. All right? Yang Yi had a slightly ferocious expression on his face as he spoke these words. Feng Jian frowned slightly, glanced at Yang Yi, and then sighed lightly upon noticing that Yang Ye's eyes were completely red. Your natural talent is very good, and it's the best I've ever seen. However, you're utterly unable to shake the Flower Palace right now. Even if I move aside, someone else would step forward to stop you, and that person would only be even stronger than me. You'll still have a chance at survival if you retreat now. Retreat? Yang Yi laughed with madness and said, Then who will avenge my mother? Cut the fucking crap. Since you refuse to move aside, then I'll go over your dead body. As he spoke, Yang Yi suddenly stomped the ground with his right foot as he utilized the rapid shift technique. He instantly arrived before Feng Jian, and the void flash swept forward swiftly. The latter's expression changed slightly, and she didn't dare act carelessly at all. Her figure shook a little before she vanished on the spot and appeared behind Yang Yi. And then the new sword which had suddenly appeared in her grasp stabbed forcefully towards Yang Ye's back. However, Yang Yi didn't dodge this attack, and Void Flash maintained its momentum and swept ahead. It pierced through space before its tip suddenly appeared behind Feng Jiang, causing her expression to change slightly. However, she didn't dodge and just increased the strength she exerted in her attack. Both sword cultivators hadn't chosen to evade, and they intended to exchange lethal blows. Feng Jian's sword stabbed onto Yang Ye's body first. However, her expression suddenly changed when that happened because her sword couldn't go any further. Meanwhile, Void Flash had stabbed her back, and it easily stabbed through her skin. But Feng Yu directly vanished on the spot when the Void Flash's tip had pierced through her skin, and she appeared over 100 away. Spatial teleportation. Yang Yi retracted his sword and gazed at Feng Jian with a very solemn expression. He hadn't expected that she would actually be able to execute spatial teleportation and avoid his attack at such a moment. The grasp of space that a 5th-rank Exalt Realm expert possesses is really much greater than the other Exalt Realm experts of the Flower Palace who I've faced. Exactly what sort of monster are you? At this moment, Feng Jian's expression was solemn as well, and her eyes were filled with shock as she gazed at him. She'd never imagined that she would actually be almost killed by a spirit realm profounder one day. Yes, she would be dead if her reaction wasn't sufficiently swift just now. A 2nd-rank spirit realm profounder had almost killed a 5th-rank Exalt Realm expert. If she hadn't experienced it herself, she would never believe it was possible. Yang Yi didn't answer her, and he just stabbed Void Flash swiftly towards the space in front of him. Feng Jian's pupils constricted, and she didn't hesitate to vanish on the spot and appear over 30 m away. However, she was just about to descend to the ground when her pupils constricted once more because the tip of a sword had directly appeared where she was about to land, and she seemed as if she was moving towards it. Feng Jian forcefully twisted her body at the critical moment and prevented Void Flash from stabbing a vital point on her body. So, The stab that would have struck her heart had instantly pierced through her left chest instead. Yang Yi was about to swing his sword again, but a wave of emptiness arose from within him, and it was because the profound energy within the tiny vortex had dried up from overuse. Yang Yi grunted coldly and kept void flash within the tiny vortex before his figure flashed and arrived in front of Feng Jian. At the same time, the dragon claws flashed into appearance, and his claws grabbed onto Feng Jian's shoulders. Yang Yi was just about to exert strength and tear this woman into two. But right at this moment, Feng Jian suddenly revealed a strange smile and shouted, "Spatial teleportation." As soon as she finished speaking, both of them entered into space. At this moment in the sky, the expressions on the faces of the founding emperor, the beast emperor, and the others on their side had changed violently, whereas delight arose onto the faces of everyone on Chen Huagu's side. Tearing space open to accomplish teleportation required a certain grasp of space, because only then could one survive the extremely dangerous spatial rifts and accomplish teleportation. However, Yang Yi was only at the spirit realm right now, so he was utterly unable to grasp the profundities of space. Since he hadn't grasped them, then how could he survive a spatial rift? Entering a spatial rift and experiencing the chaotic flow of space within it was sufficient to tear Yang Yi into bits. Haha! Beast Emperor, Founding Emperor, the outcome is decided. What do the two of you think? Chen Huagu beamed as she gazed at the Beast Emperor and Founding Ancestor, and her smile was as brilliant as 100 flowers blooming at the same time. However, right at this moment, the space below trembled before a spatial rift appeared before their eyes. After that, two figures fell out from within it. The smile on Chen Huagu's face had suddenly stiffened when she saw them, whereas a smile had appeared on the faces of the Beast Emperor and Founding Emperor, because one of those two people was Yang Yi, and Yang Yi was still breathing. Even though his clothes were in rags, he was still breathing, and it meant that Yang Yi was still alive. What a shocking little fellow! The Beast Emperor laughed lightly. After he left the spatial rift, Yang Yi broke out in cold sweat as he recalled the terrifying scenes that he'd witnessed within it. He'd almost died earlier. Yes, if it weren't for the mortal Emperor armor, then even his physical body, which was comparable to an exalt-rank dark beast, would probably suffer a heavy injury even if he was able to avoid death. The chaotic flow of space within the spatial rift was truly too terrifying. Unless he knew how to avoid them, otherwise, he didn't possess any confidence in his ability to resist them with his physical body. Fortunately, he had the mortal Emperor armor, and it was fortunate that he'd utilized it at the critical moment. Otherwise, the consequences would be truly unimaginable. Feng Jian had a pale countenance, and her chest was bleeding incessantly as she gazed at Yang Yi and asked in a low voice, How exactly did you accomplish that? Take your questions with you to hell." Yang Ye's figure flashed and instantly arrived before her. With the lesson he'd learned just now, Yang Yi didn't grab her this time, and he just slapped his claws right towards her head. Feng Jian was just about to move when Yang Yi suddenly shouted, "Sword domain!" As soon as he spoke, an invisible pressure immediately enveloped an area of 30 m around them. Feng Jian's pupils constricted while shock and horror filled her eyes. Meanwhile, Yang Ye's claws had struck her head. Since she was under the effect of the sword domain, Feng Jian didn't even have the ability to evade or resist before her head was smacked apart by Yang Ye's claws. After he killed her, Yang Yi withdrew another extreme-grade energy stone and placed it in his pocket, and then he glanced up into the air and grunted coldly. "Some of them are definitely really disappointed that I'm still alive, right?" Yang Yi withdrew his gaze, waited for the pearl of baleful blood to finish absorbing Feng Jian's blood and resentment before he flashed towards Bamboo Hall. Why was he heading to Bamboo Hall? It was naturally to kill, burn, and plunder. Chen Huagu and the others had terrifyingly gloomy expressions on their faces when they saw Yang Yi enter Bamboo Hall, and the space around them surged. Chen Huagu and the others didn't attack in the end because the Founding Emperor and Beast Emperor were right beside them. So, it would be completely useless even if they did attack. "Send a transmission for Feng Moyan to face him," Chen Huagu spoke in a low voice. "Ha ha!" Right at this moment, Bai Qi suddenly roared with laughter, and he laughed for a while before he gazed at Chen Huagu and ridiculed. This is what a great sect of the Southern Territory is like. How truly laughable. A sect is actually unable to find anyone in the same realm of cultivation to obstruct Xianxia. Now, you're actually dispatching a 7th rank Exalt Realm Profounder against him. How laughable. All of them had heard of Feng Moyan. She was an Exalt Realm expert of the older generation, and she was one of the top experts in the Exalt Realm within Flower Palace. Moreover, she enjoyed a very great reputation even if it was in the entire Southern Territory, because she was once the strongest amongst the 4 young flowers of the Flower Palace. Her greatest accomplishment in battle was killing a peak Spirit Realm expert while at the 3rd rank of the King Realm. It was that battle that made her name reverberate through the Southern Territory. The Beast Emperor shook his head as well. A 7th rank Exalt Realm Profounder against a 2nd rank Spirit Realm Profounder. The Flower Palace has really started to disregard its honor. Qianhui grunted coldly when she heard Bai Qi ridicule them, and she rebuked. Bai Qi, you speak as if your Grand Qin Empire can produce someone in the same realm of cultivation who's capable of going against that little bastard. He has a Tao artifact and the ancient sheath of the Sword Emperor in his hands, and he has even comprehended 8th level sword intent, the domain of the sword. Moreover, he possesses a natural spirit treasure as well. My Flower Palace is already giving him face by merely dispatching a single 7th rank Exalt Realm Profounder to face him. How shameless! Bai Qi spoke coldly. You're dealing with a 2nd rank Spirit Realm Profounder with a 7th rank Exalt Realm Profounder, yet you still try to see honorable and upright. I, Bai Qi, look down upon you. Bai Qi, are you itching for battle? Qianhui's face was gloomy as she spoke these words. Why would I fear you? Then come. Qianhui's figure flashed towards the sky. Bai Qi grunted coldly when he saw this, and then he hurriedly followed her. In next to no time, the sounds of their battle resounded from that area. Xianxia stood with his sword in hand within Bamboo Hall, and over 1,000 corpses were scattered around him. Besides the corpses of the Flower Palace's disciples, there were 200 swords flickering about incessantly in the surroundings. Earlier, he'd utilized the sword formation to annihilate all these disciples. However, it wasn't easy for him because all of them fought desperately against him. Fortunately, his physical body was formidable, and he was wearing the mortal emperor armor, so they weren't able to cause any material harm to him. Xianxia glanced indifferently at the pearl of baleful blood that was happily absorbing the blood and resentment in the surroundings, and then his figure flashed into the depths of Bamboo Hall. He plundered everything that was valuable within the entire hall, and then he flicked the nether ghost flame forward, causing it to spread in midair and explode within the hall. The entire hall was transformed into ashes in an instant. My Flower Palace has never suffered such a humiliation since the founding ancestor established the sect. No matter how great of a monstrous genius you are or who you have backing you, you're dead. Once you die, I'll definitely trap your soul and make you suffer the pain of being burned by sun flames for eternity. Qian Huagu's slightly savage voice resounded from the sky. Xianxia raised his head, looked into the sky, and then laughed coldly as he said, I, Xianxia, swear on my soul that I'll definitely annihilate all disciples of the Flower Palace in my lifetime, and I'll wipe off the Flower Palace from the face of this world. If I'm unable to accomplish it, then I'm willing to perish and be forever denied reincarnation. Good. Good. Very good. Qian Huagu spoke with a savage expression. You want to annihilate the disciples of my Flower Palace and destroy it? Let me see what ability you, Xianxia, possess to accomplish that. Let's wait and see. Xianxia grunted coldly before he flapped the wings on his back, and he caused a gale to arise as he vanished on the spot and flashed towards the next mountain. Qian Huagu's entire body surged with killing intent, and her savage expression made it seem like she would go berserk at any moment. On the other hand, the profound energy within the founding emperor and beast emperor surged, and they were ready to act at any moment. Because Xianxia couldn't resist the strength of a monarch realm expert at all. So, they had to guarantee that they could stop Qian Huagu and Qian Nianxi's attacks. Otherwise, Xianxia might be killed instantaneously. A short while later, Qian Huagu took a deep breath, and she glanced at the founding emperor and beast emperor with a gloomy expression while the resentment in her eyes was clear for all to see. If it wasn't for the two of them, then she could kill Yang Yi in just an instant. However, if the Flower Palace wanted to kill him in their presence. Of course, the Flower Palace could still accomplish it. After all, if all its Exalt Realm experts were to swarm Yang Yi, then what could Yang Yi do even if he had such strength? However, she didn't act completely shamelessly in the end. Because even if they were able to kill Yang Yi after sending a group of Exalt Realm Profounders to kill a Spirit Realm Profounder like him, the Flower Palace would definitely become the laughingstock of the Southern Territory. Qian Huagu spoke softly in her heart. I hope Moyin doesn't disappoint me. Yang Yi had just arrived on the next mountain when a woman was waiting there for him. The woman was very beautiful, and her beauty even surpassed the two women from before. Of course, her appearance wasn't attractive to Yang Yi at all. He only cared about the aura she revealed because it was even stronger than Feng Jian. I was still a little too late. Feng Moyin gazed at Yang Yi as she spoke slowly. I never expected that you would really dare to slaughter the disciples of my Flower Palace within my Flower Palace itself. Moreover, you even burned down its hall. The most surprising thing is that you're only at the second rank of the Spirit Realm, and you're actually Feng Yu's son. I presume you came here today to avenge your mother. Isn't that very obvious? Yang Yi flipped his palm, and then Void Flash appeared within the dragon claw on his hand. He was prepared to kill anyone who stood in his path of butchering the Flower Palace. Even if that person who obstructed him was someone his mother knew years ago, he would still kill without the slightest hesitation. Feng Moyin pondered deeply for a moment before she said, Turn back. I won't kill you out of consideration for your mother. Do it now while I still haven't changed my mind. Hiss! A ray of light flashed, and it slashed down towards Feng Moyin. She sighed lightly when she saw this, and she knew that this was Yang Ye's answer. With a flick of her finger, a flower petal condensed from energy shot forward violently, and it collided with the ray of light from Yang Ye's sword before both of them exploded apart. Flower bloom! Feng Moyin shouted as she gestured with both hands. In an instant, all the flowers on the entire mountain instantly rose from the ground, and then they transformed into a rain of petals that filled the sky. Moreover, every single petal was spinning at high speeds and seemed like a sharp blade. In just an instant, an area of 300 m around them had been filled by these terrifying petals. A heaven rank technique. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly upon witnessing this scene, because only a heaven rank technique possessed such terrifying might. He hadn't expected that she would actually utilize a heaven rank technique as soon as she attacked, and this surprised him a little. Yang Yi took a light breath before he walked slowly towards her. Feng Moyin would naturally not underestimate him. She was a senior Exalt Realm expert who possessed abundant experience, so she would naturally not make such a stupid mistake. After all, since Yang Yi had been able to kill the two Exalt Realm experts earlier, then how could he possibly be weak? So, she'd immediately utilized her full strength when the battle began as she hoped to kill him with a single blow. A wisp of ruthlessness flashed through Feng Moyin's eyes when she saw Yang Yi walking slowly towards her. And then she waved her right hand and shouted, Go! The petals in the air instantly shot violently at Yang Yi like petals being blown by a storm. Meanwhile, Yang Ye's lips parted lightly when those terrifying petals arrived 15 m away from him, and he shouted, Stop! As soon as he spoke, the petals suddenly stopped within Feng Moyin's shocked gaze, and then all the petals in an area of 30 m around him weren't able to approach anymore. Shatter! Yang Yi suddenly shouted, and then an explosion instantly resounded. All the petals within his sword domain were instantaneously transformed into dust while Yang Ye's countenance became slightly pale. Regardless of whether it was the sword domain, void flash, or the natural treasures, he couldn't execute them without limit. Even though he'd utilized the extreme-grade energy stones to support him through these 3 battles, some problems had still arisen within his body. For example, while he'd utilized the sword domain to deal with her heaven rank technique, he had still suffered a slight injury from its might. It wasn't an external injury but an internal one. His internal organs had actually been injured by the impact. He was a man, not a god, and he was overexerting himself in advance. The gap between him and all his opponents had been too huge. So, while he'd killed 2 Exalt Realm experts and slaughtered numerous disciples of the Flower Palace, he'd overexerted himself in exchange for the strength to accomplish all of that. In short, his cultivation was still quite low, and he was unable to truly utilize the Sword Domain or Void Flash at will. If he was at the Exalt Realm, then destroying that Heaven rank technique wouldn't be difficult at all. The Sword Domain. Feng Moyan spoke in a low voice. It's actually the Sword Domain. Needless to say, you really possess extraordinary natural talent. Besides the Sword Sect's founding ancestor, you are the most monstrous genius in the last 10,000 years of the Southern Territory. Unfortunately, a monstrous genius like you has become a mortal enemy with my Flower Palace. In that way, it's best to eliminate you before you're able to grow. Otherwise, my Flower Palace would definitely be unable to endure the flames of your rage in the future. Xianxia took a light breath and didn't waste his time talking nonsense with her. His figure flashed as he shot forward towards her with Void Flash in his hand. Feng Moyan grunted coldly and was about to attack, yet right at this moment, a strand of gold light suddenly erupted from Xianxia's hand. After that, a golden rope flashed off from his hand, and it passed through space and arrived in front of her. A Dao artifact. Feng Moyan's pupils constricted. She hadn't expected that Xianxia actually possessed another Dao artifact, and she was extremely shocked in her heart. Her figure immediately flashed and appeared over 30 m away. But as soon as she descended to the ground, the golden rope had vanished mysteriously on the spot, and it was already around her when it appeared again. Meanwhile, Xianxia had arrived in front of her, and then he swept Void Flash forcefully towards her neck. Feng Moyan was horrified. She was just about to circulate her profound energy, yet noticed to her astonishment that the profound energy within her body actually seemed like it had been caged and couldn't be circulated at all. I'm finished. This was the last thought that flashed through her mind before her head flew into the air. Qian Huagu and the others had horrifyingly gloomy expressions as they watched this scene. They hadn't expected that Xianxia actually possessed another Dao artifact. Exactly how many Dao artifacts does he possess? Situ Hai's expression was quite gloomy as well, because the immortal binding rope belonged to the exalted Han Empire. Right at the moment when Feng Moyan's head flew into the air, an unexpected event occurred. A woman suddenly appeared behind Xianxia, and then she swiftly slapped her palm against Xianxia's back, causing his body to curve like a drawn bow as it flew backwards. A 9th rank Exalt Realm expert. A surprise attack. The founding emperor and beast emperor's expressions had become gloomy. Xianxia's figure was blasted flying for almost 3 kilometers before he finally with a small hill. The hill instantly trembled violently from the collision and countless rocks rolled down from it. On the other hand, a woman in a red dress had appeared where Xianxia stood just now. The woman stood there proudly, while her hands were enveloped by mysterious metal-studded gloves. An ant like you actually dares to boast about destroying my Flower Palace? You're courting death. The woman gazed coldly at Xianxia, who'd sunken into the side of the hill, and she spoke with disdain. How laughable! Li Si suddenly spoke in the sky. A 9th rank Exalt Realm Profounder actually launched a surprise attack against a 2nd rank Spirit Realm Profounder, and you even seem to feel very proud of it? So the Flower Palace is filled with such trash. How truly laughable. The woman in a red dress had a slightly unsightly expression on her face yet didn't refute him. After all, Li Si was a Monarch Realm expert. It's laughable? Qian Huagu spoke coldly. Could it be that the disciples of my Flower Palace should head over one by one to be killed by him? Since he dared to attack and kill in my Flower Palace, then he should be prepared to face death. If we're talking about something being laughable, then your Grand Qin Empire is laughable. Don't tell me that the conflict within the palace of your empire is all upright and above board. Even you, Li Si, have probably conducted any dirty deeds, right? Since you're nothing good yourself, then on what basis do you ask others to act in that way? Li Si was about to say something when the founding emperor waved his hand and said, "There's no need to speak further about it. The outcome hasn't been decided yet." The expressions on the faces of Qian Huagu and the others changed, and they looked downward and witnessed the scene of a figure flashing out from the hill. Their expressions became gloomy when they saw this figure because it belonged to Xianxia. The woman in a red dress had an extremely unsightly expression. She hadn't imagined that this ant at the spirit realm would actually be able to survive after suffering a full-force attack from her. It was like an immediate slap to the face. At this moment, Xianxia's expression was extremely unsightly as well. He didn't blame her for launching a surprise attack against him, and he only blamed himself for not being sufficiently cautious and quite careless. Of course, he was a little surprised as well. He was surprised that a 9th-rank Exalt Realm expert would actually launch a surprise attack against him. She has really disregarded all shame. Of course, the most important aspect was that he'd realized how terrifying 9th-rank Exalt Realm experts were. If he didn't possess the mortal Emperor armor to resist most of her strength while his formidable physical body did the rest, then just that strike would have probably blasted him into pieces. Just this attack alone told him that he was probably unable to kill him even if he utilized the sword domain and the Tao artifacts he possessed. The gap in their realms of cultivation wasn't something that could be made up for with external forces anymore. "I underestimated you a little, ant." The woman rubbed her metal gloves together as she spoke in a low voice. Xianxia took a deep breath. Even though he was quite unwilling, he knew that it was practically impossible for him to kill her with his current level of cultivation. So, continuing the battle like this would only be a waste of time. When he thought up to this point, Xianxia stopped hesitating. He lowered his head to gaze at the ancient sheath in his hand and said, "Activate the secret technique." A ray of light flashed before the sword spirit appeared in front of Xianxia, and she pondered deeply before she said, "Even though you aren't cursed by the heavens any longer, and you've even advanced into another realm of cultivation, you only have 10 years of lifespan left. This secret technique will burn away a year of your lifespan every 2 hours. Are you sure?" "Yes," Xianxia said firmly. "Do I have another choice? I might die if I don't." The sword spirit pondered deeply for a moment before she nodded, and then she transformed back to her original shape. After that, the ancient sheath transformed into a ray of light that shot into the space between Xianxia's brows. This secret technique is one that activates the potential of the body by utilizing the body's lifespan. It will strongly affect your body once you finish using it. Remember not to utilize it for a long period of time. Otherwise, not to mention the huge decline in your lifespan, it's even very likely for irreparable harm to be inflicted upon your body. Bang! After the sword spirit finished speaking these words, an extremely terrifying aura erupted from within Xianxia, and then Xianxia's cultivation actually started to rise explosively. The 3rd rank of the spirit realm, the 4th rank of the spirit realm, the 9th rank of the spirit realm. Bang! A terrifying, imposing aura erupted once more from within Xianxia's body, and then it swept towards the surroundings like tidewater. Under the astounded expressions of everyone in the surroundings, Xianxia had actually advanced into the Exalt realm. How could this be possible? The woman in a red dress was slightly stunned by the sight of Xianxia, who'd advanced into the Exalt realm. How could he have possibly advanced from the 2nd rank of the spirit realm to the Exalt realm in an instant? How could this be possible? Chen Huagu and the others had gazes that were filled with shock as they witnessed this scene. They were aware that some secret techniques in the world could temporarily improve one's cultivation, but most of them could only improve a person's cultivation by 1 or 2 ranks, or 5 at most. Yet now, Xianxia had advanced by an entire realm of cultivation. What secret technique is that? In next to no time, they stopped thinking about this because another terrifying question had appeared in their mind. That question was how terrifying Xianxia would be now that he'd attained the Exalt realm. 8th level Slaughter Sword Intent, the Enlightened Sword Heart, the Sword Domain, a Natural Treasure, 2 Tao Artifacts. Could anyone in the Exalt realm resist him? Feng Hong, retreat quickly. He's invincible amongst those in the same realm of cultivation. He isn't someone you can stop anymore. Chen Huagu's voice was slightly anxious, because the Flower Palace had lost 3 Exalt Realm experts now, and it truly couldn't afford to lose more. Feng Hong had a slightly ferocious expression on her face upon hearing this. Retreat? If I did that today, then how would I stand up with my head held high in the Southern Territory? He's just a spirit realm profounder who has advanced to the Exalt realm by way of a secret technique. How could he possibly go against me, a 9th rank Exalt realm expert? Don't worry, martial ancestor. I'll definitely eliminate this enemy, who might become a formidable enemy for the Flower Palace in the future. After she spoke these words, Feng Hong didn't wait for Chen Huagu to speak before her figure flashed over to Yang Yi, and then she swiftly smashed her fists at Yang Yi. Everywhere they passed, space was warped by the force within her fists, and it was an extremely astounding sight. A ray of light flashed. Bang! An enormous bang resounded as Feng Hong moved back to where she stood just now. Moreover, her eyes were opened wide, and they were filled with shock and disbelief, because her low-grade heaven-rank dark metal gloves had actually been slashed into pieces by Yang Ye's attack. Yang Yi greedily inhaled a deep breath as he gazed at the sword in his hand, and then he clenched in right hand. He instantly felt a feeling of fullness in his hand, and it was the feeling of grasping space. This is how the Exalt realm feels like? Yang Yi squeezed space lightly with his right hand while he chuckled, and then he gazed at Feng Hong. A 9th rank Exalt realm expert? It doesn't seem so out of reach now. Yang Yi issued a command in his heart, and his 8th level slaughter sword intent swept out and instantly enveloped Feng Hong. The latter was astounded, and her pupils constricted because Yang Yi had arrived in front of her. Yang Yi revealed a savage smile as he swept void flash forward. Feng Hong naturally didn't dare to go head-on against this attack. What a joke! That was a Dao artifact enhanced by 8th level slaughter sword intent. How could she dare to resist it head-on? She immediately intended to retreat, but an invisible force suddenly appeared around her, and it was like a mountain that caused her to feel fairly suffocated. Moreover, the profound energy within her had even stopped moving and was impossible to circulate. On the other hand, the sword intent on Yang Ye's void flash grew even sharper after this invisible force had appeared, and its speed had risen by at least 5 times. If that invisible force wasn't there to suppress her, then she would still be capable of avoiding such speed. But now, she could only watch as Yang Ye's sword stabbed towards her. Don't you dare! Chen Huagu's furious howl reverberated like a thunderclap in the air, and then an enormous palm pierced through space and slapped down towards Yang Yi. Yang Yi frowned, but there was no hesitation in his actions, and he even increased the strength he swung his sword with. Hiss! Void flash slashed through Feng Hong's neck, and the latter's eyes seemed to bulge from their sockets while blood flowed slowly from her neck. It flowed down onto her fiery red dress, and it made the scene seem extremely beautiful yet blood. Right when that enormous palm was about to strike Yang Yi, another enormous palm had flashed into appearance, and it collided with Chen Huagu's attack. Bang! A wave of fluctuation surged through space as both the enormous palms rumbled and dispersed. Chen Huagu glanced at the Beast Emperor with resentment and said, "Beast Emperor, does your Dark Beast Empire really intend to become irreconcilable enemies with my Flower Palace?" The Beast Emperor shook his head and said, "Is there any point in saying that now?" "Good. Very good." Chen Huagu's expression had turned completely ferocious, and then she looked down towards Yang Yi and said, "You as well. Don't you want to annihilate my Flower Palace and make it vanish completely from this world? Let me see if a monstrous genius who's merely inferior to the Sword Sect's founding ancestor is capable of accomplishing that today. Disciples of the Flower Palace, heed my order. Kill this fellow with all your strength. Attack all at once." So they intend to act with complete disregard of shame? Yang Yi laughed coldly, but this just happened to suit his intentions. As soon as Chen Huagu finished speaking, movement instantly arose throughout the Flower Palace as countless profounders flashed towards the mountain that Yang Yi resided on, Lily Peak. In less than a few breaths of time, over 10,000 experts of the Flower Palace had gathered on the mountain. The weakest amongst them were at the King Realm, while most of them were Spirit Realm profounder. Moreover, there were actually almost 40 Exalt Realm experts amongst them as well. However, most of them were below the 5th rank of the Exalt Realm, and only a little over 10 were above that. Could Yang Yi go against so many experts by himself? Of course he couldn't. But he naturally wasn't stupid enough to go against so many experts by himself. Yang Yi flipped his palm, and then a transmission talisman flew in the air and exploded with a bang. He'd notified Nanjing and the others who were hiding near the Flower Palace to kill their way into Flower Palace once he gave the signal via a transmission talisman. With the strengths they possessed, it would only take a short while for them to rush over. In the meantime, Yang Yi naturally intended to give these fellows before him something to enjoy. With a command in his heart, 200 swords shot into the sky, and then the nether ghost flame flashed into appearance under his command. It trembled a little in midair before it transformed into countless strands of flame that enveloped those swords. However, this wasn't the end of it. A red glow surged out and covered the sword formation, causing the swords to instantly emanate sharp howls. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings changed violently. Just die! The swords in front of Yang Yi transformed into rays of light that descended into the crowd of disciples from the Flower Palace. Bang! An enormous explosion resounded and rumbled atop Lily Peak, and then a huge mushroom cloud shot into the sky. After that, a wave of fire suddenly swept out from within the mushroom cloud, while countless shrill cries instantly resounded above Lily Peak. A short while later, when the dust and dirt dispersed, the mountaintop was covered in corpses. Most of the Spirit Realm and King Realm Profounders here had been annihilated by this attack, and they amounted to a few thousand in number. The remaining survivors mostly consisted of Spirit Realm Profounders. While they were still alive, they'd suffered varying degrees of injuries. Besides that, there had even been some losses amongst the Exalt Realm experts. The might of Yang Ye's sword formation was actually that terrifying and formidable. The surviving disciples of the Flower Palace gazed at Yang Yi with shock, and it seemed like they were looking at a monster. Is he really a second-rank Spirit Realm Profounder who'd relied on external sources to rise into the Exalt Realm? Qian Huagu's face was horrifyingly gloomy, while killing intent surged explosively within her eyes. This fellow is absolutely a disaster that must be eliminated. Otherwise, if he's allowed to mature, then he'll definitely become a lethal threat to my Flower Palace. He has only utilized a secret technique to attain the Exalt Realm right now, yet he's already capable of utilizing such a terrifying technique. If he were to truly become an Exalt Realm expert, then would any Exalt Realm disciple of my Flower Palace be able to go against him? Actually, there was no need to wait for the future because the Exalt Realm experts of the Flower Palace were already unable to subdue Yang Yi. Situ Hai had a solemn expression as well. Obviously, Yang Ye's attack had surprised him. I never expected that such a peerless genius would have actually appeared in the Southern Territory. He must be eliminated. Otherwise, it's very likely that he'll become a great enemy of the mortal emperor. Situ Hai decided in his heart. It wasn't just Situ Hai and Qian Huagu who were surprised and shocked. Even the founding emperor and beast emperor were extremely shocked right now. They hadn't expected that Yang Yi actually possessed a secret technique to forcefully advance into the Exalt Realm and was actually capable of executing such a terrifying combat technique. That technique he executed just now was probably at the mid-grade of the heaven rank at least. The founding emperor and beast emperor exchanged glances, and then they grinned. Because the stronger Yang Yi was and the more trump cards he possessed, it was naturally better for them. Before long, Nanjing and almost 70 Exalt Realm experts arrived. Besides them, over 100 Spirit rank dark beasts had rushed over to Lily Peak as well. All of them were shocked when they saw the mess in the surroundings. Yang Yi did all of this? Eh? You've attained the Exalt Realm? And Nanjing suddenly spoke with surprise. After all, Yang Yi was only at the second rank of the Spirit Realm before they came to the Flower Palace. Yang Yi shook his head and said, I advanced by force via a secret technique. Alright, let's get to the point. There are numerous experts here, so the more you kill, the more top-grade energy stones you earn. It all depends on your ability. Don't worry, experts at the Monarch Realm won't attack all of you. So you can kill to your heart's content. When they heard those last few words Yang Yi said, all of them weren't worried anymore, and they pounced towards the group of disciples from the Flower Palace. In their eyes, every single one of those disciples was a bunch of top-grade energy stones. The forces on Yang Ye's side were much fewer than the forces of the Flower Palace, but their quality surpassed the Flower Palace. After all, the weakest on his side was at the spirit realm. Besides that, so long as a spirit realm expert wasn't an exceptionally monstrous genius, then the spirit realm expert would practically have no ability to resist an exalt realm expert. After all, not just anyone could break through the spatial cage of an exalt realm expert like Yang Yi and a Nanjing could. Even though Yang Yi had much fewer profounders on his side, the Flower Palace gradually fell into a disadvantaged state after some time of battle. Yang Yi didn't participate in the battle. He stood silently on the spot for some time before the wings on his back flapped, and he flashed towards the depths of the Flower Palace. Qian Huagu's pupils constricted when she noticed the direction he was heading, and she roared furiously. "Don't you dare, kid!" Because the direction Yang Yi was heading led to a restricted area within the Flower Palace, the Graveyard of Flowers. What was the Graveyard of Flowers? It was the grave of the Flower Palace's founding ancestor, and all the prestigious sect masters and elders of the sect. The fallen souls of the Flower Palace's experts were laid to eternal rest here, and they entered the cycle of reincarnation once more to be reborn. It could be said that while there were no treasures there nor was it a paradise of cultivation, it was a restricted area to the Flower Palace. Qian Huagu and the others naturally didn't think that he was going to pay his respects to the seniors of the Flower Palace. Even an idiot knew that he was absolutely up to no good. If Yang Yi were to enter the Graveyard of Flowers and destroy it, then not only would the Flower Palace lose face, even she, Qian Huagu, would become an unprecedented sinner of the sect. The disciples of the Flower Palace seemed to be aware of Yang Ye's intentions, so it wasn't long before a disciple obstructed his path. Yang Yi didn't waste his breath and just swung Void Flash that was enhanced by his 8th level Slaughter Sword intent, and that disciples didn't even have the chance to react before her head was split from her body. After that, Yang Yi didn't slow down at all as he flashed towards the Graveyard of Flowers. All along the way, countless disciples obstructed his path incessantly, but practically every single one of them were slaughtered by a single swing of Yang Ye's sword. At this moment, with Void Flash, 8th level Slaughter Sword intent, and the sword domain at his disposal, Yang Yi was practically invincible against profounders at the same realm of cultivation. In next to no time, Yang Yi arrived before the Graveyard of Flowers. It was situated within a gorge, and a woman in a green dress was standing silently at the entrance to the gorge with a sword in each of her hands. "There's still time for you to stop," the woman said in a low voice. "If you intended to avenge your mother, then you've already succeeded. You should be aware that it's absolutely impossible for you to annihilate my Flower Palace. At the very least, it's impossible for you right now. If you stop now, then perhaps the enmity between our sides will have a chance of being resolved. But if you dare to step foot into the Graveyard of Flowers, then we'll really be irreconcilable enemies." "Stop? Irreconcilable enemies?" Yang Yi started laughing from extreme rage upon hearing her. "I've been irreconcilable enemies with the Flower Palace since the moment my mother died." "Stop? That's absolutely impossible. I heard that the founding ancestor of your Flower Palace is buried in the Graveyard of Flowers. Yang Yi would really like to see exactly what sort of person would set such an inhumane rule. I presume you won't move aside, so it's best for you to just die." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Ye's figure flashed and instantly arrived before the woman in a green dress while the latter seemed to have expected this. Her figure shook a little when Yang Ye's figure had just started moving, and then she transformed into countless petals and vanished on the spot. After that, 2 rays of light suddenly appeared behind Yang Yi. Yang Yi grunted coldly. He ignored the rays of light behind him while he slashed Void Flash towards the sky in front of him. The pupils of the woman who'd appeared behind him constricted, but her reaction wasn't slow at all, and she crossed her swords in front of her body. Clang! She was blasted flying along with her swords. A wisp of surprise flashed through Yang Ye's eyes because this woman who was only around the 8th rank of the spirit realm had actually been able to block an attack from Void Flash. However, Yang Yi figures it out in an instant. It was definitely because the sword in her hands were no ordinary swords. Otherwise, Void Flash's might would have definitely slashed them apart even if they were Earth rank or low-grade Heaven rank swords. Yang Yi shook his head and was about to swing his sword again. However, right at this moment, A middle-aged woman appeared in front of him and stood before the woman in a green dress. A ninth-rank Exalt Realm expert. Xianxia's heart shook while he said to himself, as expected of a large sect. It actually possesses another ninth-rank Exalt Realm expert. The middle-aged woman glanced coldly at Xiangyi before she said, Jing Zhu, withdraw yourself from this battle. He's invincible amongst those in the same realm of cultivation, so it's absolutely impossible for you to surmount a realm of cultivation and go against him. Don't make an unnecessary sacrifice. The woman in a green dress called Jing Zhu pondered deeply for a moment before she nodded, and then she glanced at Xiangyi before she flashed off into the distance. I never expected that my flower palace would actually be forced into such a situation by you. Needless to say, even if my flower palace kills you today, its reputation would definitely suffer a disastrous decline in the Southern Territory. The middle-aged woman spoke slowly. I have to admit that Feng, you really gave birth to a good son. Xiangyi laughed coldly and said, The flower palace's reputation? You are considering too much. The Southern Territory won't have a flower palace in the future. Even if I can't destroy your flower palace today, I'll definitely be able to accomplish it one day. So long as I'm alive, I'll slaughter every single disciple of your flower palace until none remain in the world. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiangyi didn't continue wasting his breath. The profound energy within him surged madly while the ninth hell sword wings suddenly flapped, and a gale erupted from him as he instantly arrived before the middle-aged woman. Sword domain! Xiangyi shouted as he activated the sword domain, and then Void Flash slashed swiftly towards her. The middle-aged woman frowned from being suppressed by the sword domain, and her eyelids twitched upon seeing Xiangyi swing Void Flash towards her. She didn't dare act carelessly in the slightest, and she swiftly stomped her right foot and caused a pitch-black and enormous hole to instantly crack open in space before she entered it. In the next moment, an enormous fist that was over 100 m in size blasted down from Xiangyi's right. However, it instantly stopped upon arriving 30 m away from Xiangyi, and then it exploded into pieces. Xiangyi turned around to gaze at the middle-aged woman who stood around 300 m to his right. He hadn't expected that she would actually be able to struggle free of his sword domain. She's much stronger than the other ninth-rank Exalt Realm expert from before. That's the sword domain? The middle-aged woman had a solemn expression on her face. It really is extraordinary. It's practically impossible for a profounder at the same realm of cultivation to kill you while you possess the sword domain. Looks like I must kill you even if I have to take you down with me. Otherwise, it'll be just as you've said, and my flower palace will definitely be destroyed in the future. Cut the crap! Xiangyi took a deep breath as he withdrew the wings on his back, and then the ninth hell cold gale floated in front of him. After that, the nether ghost flame and violet cloud lightning flashed into appearance. The appearance of the three natural treasures had instantly shocked everyone in the surroundings. Ninth hell cold gale, violet cloud lightning, and this flame. It should be the nether ghost flame. 3 natural treasures. He actually possesses 3 natural treasures. Chen Huagu's eyes were filled with shock. An ordinary person might not even be able to lay eyes on natural treasures throughout their entire lifetimes, yet such natural treasures had appeared in the possession of a spirit realm profounder. Moreover, it was even 3 of them. Heavens! Why are you so kind and generous to him? As soon as they appeared here, they swiftly formed a sword under Xiangyi's control, and he pointed this sword towards the middle-aged woman whose eyes were filled with astonishment. I'll finish you with one strike. Xiangyi's domineering voice resounded through the surroundings. You'll finish me with one strike? The middle-aged woman was stunned, and then she roared madly with laughter. She laughed for a while before she said with a savage expression on her face, Good! Very good. Let me, Qianyu, see exactly how you kill me with one strike. The profound energy within her instantly surged out explosively with a wave of her right hand, and then an enormous green lotus shield was instantly condensed in front of Qianyu. It was a low-grade heaven-rank defensive technique of the Flower Palace, and it was called Green Lotus Guard. When this technique was executed by her, even a mid-grade heaven-rank combat technique was unable to shake it in the slightest. Qianyu's face was covered in disdain and ridicule as she resided behind the enormous shield. Kill me with a single strike? Does he think he's the founding ancestor of the sword sect? How laughable! Xianxia stretched out his hand to grab the hilt of the sword, which was formed from the ninth hell-cold gale, and then he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground. His figure instantly shot forward explosively like an arrow that had left the bow, and he traversed the distance of 300 m between them in an instant. Once he arrived before Qianyu, he didn't hesitate at all to activate the sword domain, and then he swiftly stabbed the sword towards the enormous green lotus shield. Clang! A clang that sounded like a sledgehammer striking against a large bell resounded, and it was simply deafening. The tip of the sword, which was formed from the nether ghost flame, stopped a little upon colliding with her shield, and the disdain on the corners of Qianyu's mouth grew even denser upon witnessed this scene. However, Xianxia suddenly spun the sword, and then the shield instantly cracked apart before exploding into pieces. Qianyu was horrified and was just about to retreat, but it was too late. The sword in Xiangxia's hand suddenly sped up explosively, and it instantly transformed into a ray of light that pierced through her chest. Qianyu's eyes were opened very wide, and she seemed to still be slightly unable to believe that she died just like that. She opened her mouth a little with the intention to say something, but a ray of light flashed by once more, and then her head flew into the air. So those words she was about to speak were naturally gone with her. Xiangxia's countenance was much paler after he killed Qianyu, and it was a sickly pale color. Xianxia almost fell weakly to the ground upon descending down the midair. Even though he was at the Exalt realm right now, it had been pushed up by external forces, and he wasn't a true Exalt realm expert. Earlier, he'd continuously overused his profound energy, and had even executed the Sword of Elements just now. So it had fully dried up all the profound energy within his body. Moreover, he felt extremely exhausted right now, and his head felt extremely heavy like it was filled with lead. He knew that if he continued exhausting himself like this, then there was no need for the Flower Palace to kill him because he would be dead before that. Xianxia shook his head and withdrew an extreme-grade energy stone to absorb the energy within it. No matter what, he was determined to destroy the grave of the Flower Palace's founding ancestor and all its elders and sect masters of the past. Since they'd set the rule that caused his mother's death, then he wanted them to be unable to rest in peace. Qian Huagu closed her eyes after she witnessed Qianyu's death, and she clenched her fists while the killing intent she emanated was seemingly material. It even caused the space around her to ripple incessantly like water. Qianyu had the best chance of stepping into the monarch realm. Yet she's dead now. If I knew this would have happened, I shouldn't have asked her to stop that little bastard. I really should have. At this moment, Qian Huagu's heart was filled with extreme pain. Qian Huagu gazed at the Beast Emperor and Founding Emperor while resentment could be clearly seen within her eyes. If it weren't for the two of them, then killing Xianxia could be accomplished in an instant. Moreover, it was exactly because of their presence that she was unable to save Qianyu just now. So, when compared to Xianxia, she hated them even more. Qian Huagu didn't choose to attack in the end because it was completely meaningless. Moreover, there was no need to now. Disciples of my Flower Palace, heed my orders. Kill Xianxia with all your might. The profound energy within him has been completely exhausted, so there's no need to fear him. The one who kills him will be directly promoted to an elite disciple and rewarded with a mid-grade heaven-rank dark treasure and 10 top-grade energy stones. Qian Huagu's voice that was enhanced by her profound energy swept throughout every single corner of the entire Flower Palace. I'm only worthy a mid-grade heaven-rank treasure and 10 top-grade energy stones? Xianxia couldn't help but laugh coldly when he heard this. Looks like the Flower Palace isn't just shameless. It's even really poor. The Flower Palace was very poor in Xiangxia's opinion, but those rewards were definitely extremely generous in the eyes of those disciples from the Flower Palace, especially the mid-grade heaven-rank dark treasure. It was something that they hadn't even laid eyes on throughout their lives. So how could they not be tempted by it? Since they were tempted, they acted. There were always those who were willing to risk it all when the reward was generous enough. In next to no time, numerous disciples stopped engaging in combat with the Nanjing and the others, and they charged towards Xianxia. Yang Yi grunted coldly when he saw them charging towards him. His hands moved slightly as the dragon claws appeared on his hands. At this moment, the profound energy within him hadn't recovered indeed, but it didn't represent that he didn't have the strength to fight. Even if his profound energy couldn't support him anymore for now, his physical body could still be utilized to kill them. Yang Yi stomped his right foot on the ground and charged into the group of disciples from the Flower Palace, and then he swung the dragon claws about swiftly. Any disciple of the Flower Palace who was struck by him were either injured or perished. On the other hand, he fully abandoned any form of defense and just allowed their techniques to blast onto him. As the disciples fell one after the other to Yang Ye's dragon claws, the expressions on the faces of Chen Huagu and the others had become unsightly again. They hadn't expected that Yang Ye's physical defense and physical strength were actually formidable to such an extent. Exactly what sort of monster is he? Can anyone in the Exalt realm even kill him while he's at the Exalt realm? At this moment, Chen Huagu and Chen Nianxi were truly filled with regret. They regretted sentencing Feng Yu to death, because if they hadn't killed her and pardoned her instead, then it would be equivalent to obtaining a peerlessly monstrous genius for their Flower Palace. Moreover, even if they didn't pardon her, she could still be used to threaten Yang Yi. But now, Yang Yi had nothing to worry about after Feng Yu perished. In short, they shouldn't have underestimated Yang Yi from the very beginning. Unfortunately, they'd never taken him seriously, because they felt that they could annihilate him in an instant, even if he was a monstrous genius. Now, reality told them that this person they thought was an ant could actually pose a threat to them. Beast Emperor. The relationship between your Dark Beast Empire and that kid seems to be not bad? The founding emperor spoke abruptly. After he found out that the Dark Beast Empire's objective was to enter the demon territory, the founding emperor wasn't hostile towards the Dark Beast Empire anymore, because their interests didn't clash with each other. Conversely, there were many aspects that they had to join forces to accomplish. The Beast Emperor glanced at the founding emperor, and then he grinned and said, "It isn't bad. That kid is unlike the other humans, and he isn't so hostile to my Dark Beast Emperor. Moreover, his relationship with some Dark Beasts of my Dark Beast Empire is very good. Of course, his relationship with your imperial household isn't bad as well. Unfortunately, I don't have a granddaughter like you." The founding emperor chuckled and said, "This kid is an extremely loyal fellow. I believe that he will definitely not disappoint that child, Xia." Li Si grinned as he shook his head. At this moment, he finally understood why the founding emperor conferred a title to Xianxia and her mother yesterday. So it was because of Yang Yi. Yesterday, the founding ancestor had suddenly conferred the title of Moon Princess to Xianxia, and he'd even bestowed to her a mid-grade heaven-rank dark treasure and the authority to look through everything within the technique pavilion of the imperial household. No one understood why the founding ancestor had done that, and even Li Si wasn't very sure. After all, Xianxia was only an ordinary princess amongst them all, and her mother was even an ordinary court lady. So, Xianxia's status in the imperial palace was merely a little higher than the court ladies. However, the founding emperor had conferred a title to her, and that was strange no matter how one looked at it. Now, it wasn't strange at all. So she was linked to Yang Yi. On the ground below, Yang Yi was killing like a madman. His dragon claws were already dyed scarlet red, while the pearl of baleful blood was ceaselessly absorbing the blood and resentment of every single profounder that he killed. In less than an hour, Yang Yi had killed a few hundred disciples, and the scarlet red color of the pearl of baleful blood had grown even brighter after it absorbed the blood of so many. However, there was no end to the disciples of the Flower Palace, because countless disciples were charging over incessantly from the various peaks throughout the sect. As soon as 100 were killed, 200 filled their places. So, in less than 2 hours of time, Yang Ye's side had started to fall into a disadvantaged state. After all, there was only less than 200 amongst them, whereas, there was no end to the disciples of the Flower Palace, so this difference naturally caused them to fall into a disadvantaged state. The situation will get bad if this continues. And Nanjing arrived by Yang Ye's side and spoke in a low voice. She wasn't afraid of these disciples of the Flower Palace, but she had to consider those experts of the clan who stood behind her. If this were to continue, then it was very likely that they would perish here. After all, it was impossible for such a small force like theirs to annihilate an entire sect. Bang! After he slapped the head of an expert apart, Xianxia stopped and glanced at the surroundings, and he frowned when he saw that his side were in a disadvantaged state. He pondered deeply for a moment before he said, "Hold them off for around 15 minutes, and then we'll leave. All right? What are you going to do?" asked in Nanjing. Xianxia revealed a ferocious expression as he said, "I'm naturally going to give the Flower Palace an unforgettable lesson. I'm going to make them utterly humiliated in the Southern Territory." As soon as he finished speaking, Xianxia didn't stay here any longer, and he flashed towards the graveyard of flowers. When she saw Xianxia flash off towards the graveyard of flowers, Qian Huagu's expression changed while she howled furiously in a slightly hysterical voice. "Quickly stop him. If Xianxia were to enter the graveyard of flowers and completely destroy it, then the Flower Palace's reputation would be destroyed. Moreover, she, Qian Huagu, and even all the disciples of the sect would become unprecedented sinners of the sect." Those disciples seemed to realize how severe the matter was, and they immediately stopped engaging in battle with Nanjing and the others. All of them charged madly in pursuit of Xianxia, and a few Exalt Realm experts had even torn space open and teleported through it to stop Xianxia. "Rapid shift!" Xianxia suddenly shouted, and then he transformed into a ray of light under the boost provided by the 9th Hell Swordwings and the rapid shift technique. He instantly entered the entrance to the graveyard of flowers. However, Xianxia had just entered it when he was suddenly blasted out from it. Moreover, a conspicuous strand of blood could be seen on the corner of his mouth. As everyone watched with shock, a white-haired old woman walked slowly out of the graveyard. Her hair was completely white while her face was covered in wrinkles, and it made her seem extremely old. However, it was exactly such an old woman that made the expressions of the founding emperor, the Beast Emperor, and the others to change violently. Because this old woman was a Monarch Realm expert. At this moment, the Monarch Realm experts on their side and the Flower Palace were in confrontation, so the addition of another Monarch Realm expert on the Flower Palace's side had undoubtedly caused them to fall into a disadvantaged position. "The situation is really bad." Qian Huagu and the others instantly heaved sighs of relief upon seeing the old woman. But in next to no time, their expressions became solemn again for some unknown reason. Xianxia pulled himself up from the ground, and he just stood on his feet when a mouthful of blood sprayed once more from his mouth. He wiped off the fresh blood on the corners of his mouth while his expression was quite unsightly. He hadn't expected that a Monarch Realm expert would be hiding in the graveyard of flowers. If the mortal Emperor armor hadn't resisted more of the force on his behalf, then he would have probably been blasted into pieces by this old woman. Monarch Realm experts are actually that formidable. Xianxia took a deep breath. He knew that he was utterly incapable of going against Monarch Realm experts right now. The old woman glanced at the surroundings, and then a wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of her mouth when she noticed the mess in the surroundings. She said, "I never expected that even the Flower Palace would suffer such a fate. I truly never expected it. The dignified Flower Palace was actually attacked. How laughable! How pitiable!" Qian Huagu spoke in a low voice from midair. "Senior sister, don't call me that." The old woman waved her hand and said, "I'm not a disciple of the Flower Palace anymore. Qian Huagu, you should be clearly aware of that. I'm not worthy to be addressed as senior sister." Qian Huagu frowned and sighed lightly. "Senior sister, you were a disciple of Flower Palace no matter what. Now that the palace is in grave danger, could it be that you intend to stand by idly? Would Master Spirit in the heavens be happy if the Flower Palace were to be destroyed? Let's put aside the enmity between us for now and join forces against our enemies. All right? Master!" The old woman revealed a savage expression on her face as she said, "What does her happiness have to do with me? Qian Huagu, have you forgotten how she treated my husband and child? Have you forgotten how she forced me to swear an oath to repent eternally before the seniors of the palace within the graveyard of flowers?" Qian Huagu fell silent. "You're Qian Yen. Meanwhile, the founding emperor suddenly said, I never expected that you are actually still alive. Moreover, you've even advanced to the monarch realm. How truly surprising. Qianyan was an existence of his generation, and she was a genius in the southern territory at that time as well. Moreover, the Flower Palace had even appointed her as the next palace master. However, she'd fallen in love with a man and had a child with him. At that time, the palace master of the Flower Palace was infuriated upon discovering it, and she personally captured Qianyan's husband and child before bringing them back to the Flower Palace. Qianyan had never shown herself in the southern territory after that. Many thought that she'd probably been sentenced to death by the palace master, and this included the founding emperor. However, no one had expected that not only was she still alive, she'd even advanced into the monarch realm. Fortunately, she seemed to possess a huge amount of resentment towards the Flower Palace. Qianyan glanced coldly at the founding emperor and said, Founding Emperor, I never expected that you've really acted against the various sections. The Beast Emperor is here as well. I never expected that the two of you would actually join forces. When she spoke up to hear, Qianyan suddenly looked at Yang Yi and said, You're quite surprising as well. You are actually still able to stand after suffering a strike of my palm. Such strength at such a young age. The young have truly surpassed the old. Will you move aside? Or do you intend to continue stopping me? Yang Yi looked her in the eyes, and there was no fear in his eyes at all. He was determined to destroy the graves of Flower Palace's seniors, and no one could stop him. Qianyan's brows raised as she said, You seem to be very confident in yourself? So she refuses? Yang Yi took a deep breath and was just about to summon the white dragon. However, right at this moment, Qianyan suddenly said, Even though I wish for nothing more than to see you annihilate the Flower Palace, unfortunately, I've sworn an oath to repent in the graveyard of flowers and protect it. So long as you don't touch this place, you can feel free to do anything you like throughout the Flower Palace. The expressions on the faces of Chen Huagu and the others sank when they heard this, whereas the founding emperor and the others were delighted. However, Yang Yi shook his head and said, I'm sorry, but I'm definitely destroying their graves today. Qianyan's eyelids twitched, and then she said coldly, Then it's time to reveal your trump cards. Yang Yi nodded and was just about to summon the white dragon when a voice suddenly resounded here. Since you want to destroy their graves, then go and do it. I'll stop this person for you. Along with this voice, Xiao Tianji appeared here, a monarch realm expert. The expressions on the faces of Chen Huagu and the others changed violently. They hadn't imagined that Yang Yi actually had the help of another monarch realm expert. Moreover, it was at least a 5th-rank monarch realm expert. The founding emperor and beast emperor exchanged glances, and they noticed shock in each other's eyes. Obviously, Xiao Tianji's appearance had surprised them. Yang Yi was slightly surprised as well. Even though Xiao Tianji had promised to lend him a hand, he hadn't imagined that Xiao Tianji would actually come to the southern territory with him and help him. No matter what, this was a good thing. Yang Yi bowed slightly to Xiao Tianji, and then he walked slowly towards the graveyard of flowers. Qianyan's expression was extremely gloomy, but she didn't attack and could only allow Yang Yi to head towards the graveyard, because it was meaningless even if she did attack. This blind man who'd suddenly appeared before her was far stronger than her, so attacking would only be like asking for insult and humiliation. As they watched Yang Yi walk towards the graveyard, Chen Huagu and the other disciples of the had horrifyingly ferocious expressions. If the graveyards of the founding ancestor and all the seniors of the Flower Palace were destroyed by Yang Yi, then the Flower Palace's reputation in the Southern Territory would be destroyed as well. At that time, there would probably be no one who joined the Flower Palace, and all of them would be unable to hold their heads up high while facing the disciples of the other sects. Yang Yi, you've won. Right at this moment, Chen Huagu suddenly said, If you stop right now, then my Flower Palace is willing to compensate you, and even pardoning your mother isn't impossible. If you're unsatisfied, my Flower Palace is willing to further compensate you with 50 top-grade energy stones. Chen Huagu felt extremely aggrieved in her heart when she spoke these words, but she had no other choice. She couldn't allow Yang Yi to destroy those graves no matter what. After all, it was related to the Flower Palace's dignity. Stop? Compensation? 50 top-grade energy stones. Yang Yi roared with laughter, and then over 100 top-grade energy stones appeared with a flip of his hand before he tossed them on the ground. He said, "I'll give you 100 top-grade energy stones for you to destroy the graves of all the seniors of your Flower Palace. All right? If it isn't enough, I'll give you 200 more. All right? Good. Very good. Very good." Qian Huagu was clearly infuriated, and the killing intent in her eyes seemed material as she said, "Yang Yi, from now onward, the enmity between my Flower Palace with you will never end until one of us is annihilated. From today onward, the #1 mission of the entire Flower Palace will be to annihilate you. From today onward, I—" However, Yang Yi didn't have the mood to hear her talk nonsense. His figure flashed into the graveyard of flowers, and it caused Qian Huagu to almost go mad with rage. "Everyone, attack!" Qian Huagu threw all caution to the wind, and both she and Qian Yan flashed towards Yang Yi. However, the founding emperor and beast emperor had hurriedly acted and immediately stopped them from rushing towards Yang Yi. At this moment, Qian Huagu and the others has disregarded whether fighting was meaningless or not. All they knew was that the graves of their ancestors and seniors were about to be destroyed, so they naturally attacked like they'd gone mad. Then entire Flower Palace was instantly filled with terrifying explosions. After he entered the graveyard of flowers, Yang Yi withdrew Void Flash and summoned both the Violet Cloud Lightning and Nether Ghost Flame. He had to be careful because no one knew if there were more experts in this grave. The area inside of the graveyard was formed from petals, and an enormous space that was over 10 kilometers wide had appeared before Yang Yi. There were coffins made of petals here, and they were placed around 100 m apart from each other. Yang Ye's figure flashed and arrived before one of those coffins, and then he flicked his sword and instantly flicked away its cover. Within the coffin was an extremely beautiful woman, but she had no vitality or aura. Only her physical body had been perfectly preserved to the point even her face was rosy like she was a living person. Yang Yi wasn't interested in looking at these corpses. He shot his gaze towards the distance, and it wasn't long before his gaze descended on an enormous coffin at the center. This coffin was a few times larger than the other coffins, and it was on an independent circular platform which was made from petals as well. Yang Ye's figure flashed over to the circular platform, and a wisp of a ferocious expression instantly appeared on the corners of his mouth when he saw its tombstone. Mu Hanshan, founder of the Flower Palace. Founding ancestor of the Flower Palace. There were some legends and introductions related to her written on the tombstone as well. However, Yang Yi wasn't interested in reading through all of it. In his opinion, it was sufficient so long as he'd confirmed it belonged to the Flower Palace's founding ancestor. Yang Yi flicked his sword again, and the cover was instantly flicked away without anything unexpected occurring. Moreover, it was extremely easy. Yang Yi walked over to the coffin, but it was completely empty. Could she have traversed the heaven path and vanished from this world? So, this coffin was merely created for symbolic purposes and to allow the disciples of Flower Palace to worship her? Yang Yi frowned as he muttered in a light voice. In next to no time, Yang Yi shook his head, and then he flashed over to the graveyard's entrance. After that, he glanced at the surroundings before he took a deep breath, and then a savage expression surged into his eyes. He flipped his palm, and the Nether Ghost Flame instantly exploded apart. It wasn't long before it transformed into an ocean of flames that enveloped the entire graveyard. No! Qian Huagu's furious howl resounded from outside the graveyard, and it was filled with a hysterical and insane tone.